Honourable members, shall we pray? Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it accomplish its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision for our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the wills of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the effort of those who struggle to make this vision a living. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, we don't have message from the President, neither do we have any formal communication from the Speaker. We will then proceed to item 4, correction of votes and proceedings and official report. Honourable members, we will begin with votes and proceedings, and we will start from page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page number 7. Page 8. Page 9. Yes, Honourable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, page 8, item 4, sub-item 15. My name is Kluche Aveji. Mr. Speaker, I was here on the floor yesterday, and surprisingly, I've been marked absent. I'm surprised. So, table office, take note. Reverse that immediately. Because I was here, we were arguing here yesterday. But why do you mark me absent? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader, you cannot direct them to take note. Yesterday I saw you, but it could be that you didn't sign the register. Is that not right? You didn't sign. Anyway, table, kindly take note of that. We proceed to page 9. Yes.
Mr. Thank you very much for your indulgence. I want to take you back to page 8. The following honorable members were absent, and Collins Dauda Al-Haji is indicated absent without permission. Then 20, that is item 22. Then 29, Muntaka Muhammad Mubarak, also absent without permission. Mr. Speaker, the two of us were in South Africa representing this parliament for Pan-African meetings. And we have been marked as absent without permission, when indeed we are representing this house. Thank you very much.
But did you seek permission? There's a format for you to go through. Did you do that?
Thank you very much. We did. Thank you very much.
Honorable Collins, you know, I do that on behalf of the Speaker. So if you did, you are insisting you did, you will check. If you check and you didn't do, then it will stand as it is. But
even when we went out to represent this parliament in Ghana, you will not help us with the permission.
that is fine, but that notwithstanding, the format has been given to us. I know your colleagues, a lot of you presented their leave of forms. Yes, First Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is often the case that our delegation that represents us at various other international groups take it for granted that because we are the elected or representatives of the parliament, we often forget to apply as the rules require. However be it, Speaker, if a person or a member of the delegation fails to apply, but the evidence is that that person actually reached Parliament, there's evidence to suggest that. And I think it may be fair to let the record reflect that persons were absent with permission because they are appointed or elected representatives, and often the Speaker would have approved their leaving the Parliament of Ghana at the time and period. Often the memo states, the memo to the Speaker states when members will leave and when they will return. So it may be the case that in the case of the Honourable Member for Awaham, of the Asutifi South and Honourable Muntaka, they may not have. Because I checked with the other colleagues, there are 5 of us. The other colleagues are marked absent with permission. The probability is that they submitted the forms as required by our rules. I think that we should take note that they actually were representing the Parliament of Ghana at the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I think this is an issue that has to be looked at in this House. Mr. Speaker, just a couple of weeks ago, I was attending to parliamentary committee meeting right in this premises. And yesterday, it came up like I have not attended Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I think that going forward, and both leaders are here, maybe the Parliamentary Service Board will have to look at this particular issue because I don't think that is fair, respectfully. Thank you very much.
Leader, if you may educate us.
Speaker, ordinarily, if one is absent from the House, attending to a business that relates to this House, maybe at a committee meeting or on it will be assumed that the person is representing the Parliament of Ghana. However, Mr. Speaker, we may have a situation where a person goes outside Parliament and then engages in something that brings the image of this House into dispute. And when a person is being trailed, he runs to a committee meeting, puts an appearance, was a committee, and claims an alibi. Or maybe supposed to be at ECOWAS Parliament or Pan-African Parliament. Then on your route to the place, you get yourself involved in some fortunate incident, you are being pursued, and then you run to the Pan-African Parliament and claim that you are representing Ghana. It's for the avoidance of doubt in such a case that you have to seek permission from the Speaker before you travel out, so that if anything comes up, the Speaker then will bear testimony that indeed he gave you permission to travel outside. That's the practice of the House. It's the reason why, Mr. Speaker, the 7 bears eloquent testimony of those of them who sought permission of the Speaker, sent with permission. Those of them who did not seek permission are absent, simpliciter. And Mr. Speaker, the committee sitting in this House, when the Parliament is sitting, it only refers to a committee of the whole. That sitting includes the sitting of a committee of the whole, not other committees. You cannot presume that you are the Finance Committee without seeking permission. And because your name surfaced in people attendance, you say to yourself that you sought permission. You cannot so presume. Because that is the practice of Parliament, and it must be respected. Until we revise or review or amend our rules, that is the practice.
Very well. So, Honorable Collins Dada.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is clear from what Honorable Collins said and echoed by First Deputy Speaker. They were in South Africa for Pan-African Parliament meeting. So it's fair for the record to show that Honorable Collins Dada, the whole of last week, was absent. If for nothing, the record should reflect that he was in Pan-African Parliament on behalf of Ghana's Parliament. So it will give a clear signal. The fact that he did not write officially to seek permission, but he went to South Africa to work for Parliament. In fact, Majority Leader sent him. Parliament was aware that he was in South Africa. So for him to say that because he did not sign the official permission letter, he should not absent, that will not be fair to Honorable Collins Dada.
Yes.
So it should reflect that even though he did not sign to seek permission, but he was in South Africa on behalf of Ghana's Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, you are right.
You are so. Yes.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, respectfully, I do not intend to engage in a debate with my leader, but I very much disagree with the submission he's just made. Mr. Speaker, in the sense that if he is saying that, so if I go to a committee meeting, I cannot be counted as having attended Parliament. I think, Mr. Speaker, I really need some further explanation to that. Mr. Speaker, I'm a member of the Defense and Interior. I come here and there's a select committee meeting, so I go there straight. And the meeting drags over 3-4 hours. By the time I finish, sitting in the plenary is over. Is that to suggest absent?
Honorable members.
Speaker, respectfully, we've traveled this path several times, and speakers from this. So I can't understand why my colleague disagrees with me. We will disagree with the practice and the convention of this House. But Mr. Speaker, I respectfully let me plead that we move on. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying so because today, look at the number of people in this chamber. Then Tuesday, look at the votes and proceedings. How many people will be captured as having been present here? Mr. Speaker, I entreat you. I don't know whether I'm out of order. My colleague is getting up when I was speaking. Mr. Speaker, Can you order him to sit down? When the leader is talking, you can order him to sit down. Mr. Speaker, respectfully, I'll beg of you to curtail this. We'll move on because we have had rulings on this, and nobody has challenged the ruling of the speakers. So the status quo ante should hold.
Very well. Is it not the same thing?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, this is a very simple matter. This issue came up when we're discussing the issue of the Privilege Committee on some of our colleagues. And I remember the Right Honourable Speaker Bagbin said that when the person is engaged in a committee meeting, the person will go straight to the committee meeting. If the committee meeting do not close at the time when the person can come here and sign, it is the responsibility of the table office and the other committee to be able to reconcile the dates of that committee and the attendance. Secondly, if somebody had traveled on a parliamentary delegation, is gone on a business of parliament, it's the responsibility of the administration and table office to reconcile their records to that this person is absent with permission because he's gone on a parliamentary duty. Because if we always assume that the person will send in a permission, the permission has to be granted before the person leaves, we cannot have, there will be circumstances when the person, it will be urgent, the person will not have a right there and come and seek that permission. But if the administration is aware that the person is traveled on such an assignment, it is for them to reconcile the records with the table office so that we kept all these instances of people being marked up when they are actually on parliamentary assignment.
Well. Honourable members, I believe every society is governed by rules. For now, the rules we are using demands that if we are traveling, whether it's on parliamentary delegation or whatever it is, fill a form and let's have the form so that it can be captured. Until we address that issue in our standing orders, the status quo will remain. That notwithstanding, Honourable Collins Dada, now that you are here and you are making your own case, I'll at the table should include his name and the other person who was Muntaka, yes, to include their name in members who absented themselves with permission.
We are grateful, Mr. Speaker.
For all the days, yes. Very well. So we go to page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Yes, Honourable Member for Kadaso.
Honourable Speaker, on page 13, under Committee on Youth, Sports and Culture, opening. The committee on Monday, 14th March 2023 at 11:20 a.m. and there is a conjunction end there. It has to be cancelled. 11:20 a.m. and at 2 at 12 to inspect facilities. Thank you.
Yes, table. Take note of it. Yes. Then I come once to Quadra, so obviously I'll go to Northton when it comes to votes and proceedings. Yes, Honourable Member for let's hear you.
I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, still on that same paragraph, Monday was not the 14th of March. If the meeting was held on Monday, then it should be 13th March. So they need to reconcile. Was it Monday or Tuesday? Because 14th March was a Tuesday and not a Monday. And Mr. Speaker, there has to be clarity. do they want to capture that the committee met? So they insert met. Committee met on Monday. It should be 13th March. That's if it's Monday, or if it's 14th March, then Tuesday, 2023 at 11 a.m. and undertook a talk. So it should be clarified. I think that met is missing. That should be inserted, and then the date should be clarified. If they met on Monday, then it's 13th and not 14th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, honorable member, I would direct that the table check when the day the meeting was held. They will do the correction accordingly. Yes, honorable BT Baba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm a member of the committee. It was that we went for monitoring, took a tour. We never met at all. We never met. It was on a Monday.
You took the tour
13th,
on Monday.
so the 13th is correct. Monday, the 13th, not 14th.
Very well. So, table.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Table, kindly take note and address the issue. We turn to page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. And finally, page 19. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of Thursday, 16th March 2023 is hereby adopted as the true records of proceedings. Honorable members, I have in my hands official report of Wednesday, 16th November 2022. Official report.
Mr. Speaker, we sat a bit late. Today is Friday, and there are some major businesses for us to transact. For which reason I want to suggest and indeed appeal that we suspend the consideration of these official reports to next week Tuesday to enable us to pursue the agenda of the day.
Yeah, I don't think we have much to do with it, so that I don't know.
Mr. Speaker, I think it would be appropriate if we suspend the consideration of the official report. Mr. Speaker, this is particularly important because members from the minority side are filing their votes beginning tomorrow, and they would like to go early. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, on that note, we turn to item 5 into the other paper. Item 5, business statement for the ensuing 7th week. May I respectfully call the chairman of the business committee.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, with your leave, the deputy whip proceed to present the report. Thank you.
Yes. The leave is granted. The deputy whip podium and present the business week for this business statement for the 7th week.
Mr. Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, the business committee yesterday, Thursday, 16th March 2023, and arranged business for the House for the 7th week, ending Friday, 24th March 2023. The committee agreed on the following proposals for the ensuing week. Formal communication by the Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, you may read any available communication to the House. Questions. Mr. Speaker, the Business Committee has scheduled 8 ministers to respond to questions asked of them during the week. They are the Minister for Interior, Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, the Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, the Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister, the Education Minister, Finance, Natural Resources Minister, the Attorney General, the Minister for and Highways. A total 45 questions have been admitted, 10 of which are urgent questions and 35 are oral. Statement. Right Honourable Speaker, you may admit statements to be made in the House by honourable members in accordance with Order 72. Papers and reports. Honourable Speaker, papers may be laid during the week and reports from committees may be presented to the House. Motions and resolutions. Mr. Speaker, motions may be debated and there are consequential resolutions, if any, taken during the week. Referrals are committees. Mr. Speaker, the BSD again urges committees with referrals to expedite work on same for the consideration of the House. Responses to parliamentary questions and other business. Mr. Speaker, the Business Committee wishes to inform honourable members that Ministers of State have not been programmed to respond to parliamentary questions on Thursday, 23rd March 2023. This decision is to enable the House consider some bills and other important businesses. Sitting time. As honourable members are aware, the House has barely 2 weeks to adjourn Senate for the Easter break. In view of this, the Business Committee entreats all members to devote themselves to the business of the House, to dispose of the tall order of business pending before the House. Committee also recommends that the House commence sitting each day at 10 a.m. Conclusion, Right Honourable Speaker. In accordance with Order 162 and subject to Standing Order 53, the committee submits to this Honourable House the order in which Business House shall be taken during the week. Kindly find attached the rest of the document, which is up to page 9. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the business statement for the 7th week has been read to us. If there's any issue a member would like to raise, yes, honorable member for Bingo Pram Pram.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to make an appeal that in the business statement for next week, if the business committee could consider inviting the Minister for Health to come and address this House on a very critical issue of 10,975 rotational nurses and midwives who have worked for 8 months without receiving their paltry allowance of 799 Ghana cedis. Some of them, especially the women, are now the subjects of sexual harassment to be able to pay food and even go to their service. So if we can have the health minister come here to tell us what plans his ministry has to deal with 1,975, it will help us. It's a critical national security issue. Because if we withdraw these rotational nurses and midwives, our health sector could actually face a challenge. But they are also threatening to withdraw their services for 8 months. So I think we should bring the health minister to answer questions on this. Thank you.
Yes, honorable Northton.
Well, thank you very much, Speaker. The Speaker, let me commend leadership for creating space for the Deputy Majority Whip to present the business statement. I think it's very refreshing, and we enjoyed listening to her. We're getting a bit tired of the Majority Leader's voice every Friday, So I think there should be more of that, so that we can hear her nice melodious voice. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, there are 3 matters that I want to present very quickly. The first one relates to item number 4 on page 2, responses to parliamentary questions and other business. We are told there will be no questions on Thursday, the 23rd of March 2023. This decision is to enable the House to consider financial bills and other important business. We must know what the other important businesses are so that we can adequately prepare. You have told us about the financial bills. We know about those. But what are those other important business that we are not being told about? We don't want to be ambushed. We don't want to be ambushed. We don't want surprises. So what are those other important business? We want to know what they are so we can prepare adequately. Issue number 2, Mr. Speaker, page 2 of the attachment. Item number II, presentation papers. IIIA, report of the Committee of the Whole on the draft public registration of voters regulations 2023. Mr. Speaker, that day, the 28th of February 2023, when we held the Committee of the Whole, I asked a question relating to the breakdown of all registered Ghanaians district by district. Fortunately, the NIA has offices coterminous with constituencies. The Executive Secretary assured us that day that the data is available. It's been more than 2 weeks. The data has not been submitted. Last week I checked. They have a record of the data. Indeed, yesterday I had to dispatch a letter to the Executive Secretary reminding him that he has not made good his promise of making this House receive the district breakdown. So we need to know, particularly as he has gone on record. He was on Newsfile on the 25th of February 2023, saying that when we go to our district offices, the data they give us is not reliable, that we need to come to him for a more reliable, more credible data. So, Mr. Speaker, here we are. We haven't received that data, and it is being advertised. The Committee of the Whole report is ready. I'm not too sure if this is an accurate rendition. And, Mr. Speaker, it leaves us quite in a quandary. Has Professor Atefua submitted the district by district breakdown? If not, we need to have it before we consider this report. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the last page, I believe, 9, motions. Mr. Speaker, item number 5. I recall that the Right Honourable Speaker admitted 2 motions. The National Cathedral motion, which has been captured here, but there is one missing, that is the motion related to the domestic debt exchange program. There was a motion admitted for Parliament to look into the domestic debt exchange program. I don't see that motion advertised here. It had been advertised earlier, but we only have the National Cathedral probe motion captured here. I don't know if there is explanation for why that domestic debt exchange program motion appears missing from the business statement. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Oponko.
To my colleague, the Honourable Member of Parliament, who was asking about the other business. Speaker, on the 7th page, the financial matters are listed, and the other important business is also listed. The proposed formula for the distribution of the District Assembly's Common Fund, for example, is information that I think is already available to this House. Unless you're saying that that is not other important business. It's there. It's all listed there. Unless you are saying the distribution formula for the District Assembly's Common Fund is not important business. It's there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think my colleague was directing his question to our colleague who read the statement. Who was in the business committee? If we begin to allow members from this side to ask questions to on the other side, Mr. Speaker, there will be chaos in the House. So my colleague who doesn't, he was not even I know because he's busy, he doesn't frequent the House that much, and today he's around, wants everybody to know he's around, should just wait for the leadership to answer the question instead of him, who is not even part of the business committee, to just relax, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Abeji.
Mr. Speaker, there were a number of questions slated to be answered by the ministers for this week. But because of the debate, those questions were not answered. But there is no space for it next week for them to be answered. Can my niece, who presented a statement, tell us when those questions will be answered? Because I have a question for the finance, which was supposed to be taken this week. So let's find out when the finance minister will come to answer those questions.
Yes, I'll take the last one from.
Mine was just to add that I haven't heard my brother's voice for some time now, Honourable Kojo Pong Nkrumah.
Oh.
And since he's
Honourable
one of
member,
the
it has nothing to do with the
since he's one of the beneficiaries of the award, perhaps you could add in the business statement a day to congratulate him within the week. Perhaps that's the reason why he wanted his voice to be heard. Anyway, congratulations.
Yes, leader. Leader, may you have responses to?
Honourable Speaker, thank you. Am I allowed to mention this name here? Honourable Jatabi. Honourable Jatabi. Jata himself. So, Honourable Sir, this is it's a question, it's a full question. that you have to go through the right channel to have it. It's a question. So this is not, it is a critical national issue, we accept, but I advise that you do the right thing. On item number 4 by Honorable South Tonu, another Sam. North Tonu, I'm sorry. Honorable Information Minister, the response is right there on page 7. The response is right there on page 7. Kindly go through, kindly refer. On breakdown of registration, I again advise that you go through the appropriate channel. Questions. This is not a parliamentary arrangement. This is your own private arrangement that you with the okay. Okay, so we'll try and follow up for you. And your next one, which is at 5, we'll confer with the table office to ensure that your responses are worked on. Honorable Abeji, you have to pursue this through the right channel. Yeah, the right channel is going through. Honorable Abeji, you are just a immediate past member of the committee. So I am surprised that you are asking me this. You know what to do. You know exactly what to do. Thank you very much.
Honourable members, we have a lot today. We are closing the debate. There are other things. There are questions to be answered, please. I beg of you, honourable members. Honourable members, the business statement as presented to us and have been discussed is hereby adopted.
You have done well.
Yes. Honourable members, I guess we are moving to page 7, item 9, to continue with the motion of thanking the President for appearing before us in this House and by extension to the whole nation with the state of the nation. We are concluding the debate today by the two leaders. So I will begin by calling the minority leader, Honorable Dr. Ato Forsen. Honorable, he said I should give you
Mr. Speaker, if you can give me 2 hours, that would be great. But I'll be able to make do with 1.
I'm giving you between 30 minutes and 1 hour. So I'm giving you range. But you wouldn't go beyond 1 hour. Between 30 minutes and 1 hour. So you have the floor now. Your time starts right now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also contribute to the debate on the message of the State of the Nation read by His Excellency the President. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, I will start by ensuring that certain records that the President actually placed in his message are corrected. Mr. Speaker, in fact, certain misconceptions were created that most of the resources that were made available to His Excellency the President and the government were used for the purposes of the construction of. Mr. Speaker, as part of the journey that I will be taking you through, I will ensure that this major misconception is actually cured. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, let me say that in the year 2017, this NPP administration, led by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, received tax and non-tax revenue amounting to 39.6 billion Ghana cedis, tax and non-tax revenue, 2017 alone. Again, they borrowed an amount of 20 billion Ghana same year. So in the year 2017, total resource envelope, in other words, monies that were made available to this administration, amounted to 59.6 billion Ghana cedis in 1 year. At the time, the NDA exchange rate was 1 cedi, $1 is 4 cedis, 4 West. So if you are to convert it, Mr. Speaker, the government received revenues, total money for the purposes of managing the affairs of this country, amounting to 13.5 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, $13.5 billion. $13.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, out of this $13.5 billion, he spent only 187 million Ghana cedis, $1 million for the purposes of construction of roads. In other words, out of the 59.6 billion Ghana cedis, they spent only 830 million Ghana cedis for the purposes of roads. This amounts to 1.9% of the total resource envelope. So you receive 59.6 billion cedis in 1 year and spend 830 million Ghana cedis for the purposes of the construction of roads. Again, Mr. Speaker, even if you stretch this to include capital expenditure, the government only spent 6.3 billion Ghana cedis out of the 59 billion Ghana cedis only for the purposes of capital expenditure, representing only 10.6% of the total resource envelope. The question one will ask is that for the year 2017, a big amount of 54 billion Ghana cedis went into consumption. 54 billion Ghana cedis consumption. Mr. Speaker, my question is, where is the money? Nasikano Wahe. 54 billion Ghana cedis 1 year. Yet, Mr. Speaker, all of it went into consumption. Mr. Speaker, again, in the year 2018, the same government received tax and non-tax revenue, an amount representing 47.6 billion Ghana cedis. 2017. 2018, 47.6 billion Ghana cedis. Again, they borrowed 33.1 billion Ghana cedis in the same year, 2018. That together means that the administration had 80.7 billion cedis in 2018 alone. 80.7 billion. Of this amount, Mr. Speaker, if you are to convert to the exchange rate, Mr. Speaker, the administration received 16.7 billion US dollars in 1 year, 2018 alone. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the administration used only 491 million out of the 80.7 billion Ghana cedis for the purposes of roads. In fact, if you are to include the entire capital expenditure for the year, they spent 4.7 billion Ghana cedis for capital expenditure alone. This means, Mr. Speaker, 76 billion Ghana cedis went to consumption. 76 billion Ghana cedis went to consumption. 1 year. 1 year. Mr. Speaker, again I ask, Nasikano Wahe, what exactly did they use the money for? 1 year. Speaker, as if that is not enough. 2019, this administration again received tax and non-tax revenue, an amount of 53.3 billion Ghana cedis. 53.3 billion Ghana cedis. And then borrowed another 45 billion Ghana cedis. Two put together,
8.4 billion Ghana cedis. 2019, 98.4 billion Ghana cedis represent total resource envelope that this administration had in the year 2019. Out of this amount, Mr. Speaker, they used only 1.2 billion Ghana cedis to construct roads. So you receive 98.4 and then you use 1.2 billion Ghana cedis for the purposes of roads, and you are saying that the money was for the purposes of roads. Mr. Speaker, that cannot be the case. This amount represents only 1.3% of the total resource envelope. 1.3% of the total resource envelope. If you stretch it to include the entire capital expenditure, it is clear that this administration, at the time that they received 98.5 billion Ghana cedis, they spent only 6 billion on capital expenditure, representing only 6.2% of the total resource envelope. Speaker, clearly, the money was used for something else, upwards and capital expenditure. And the key question is, where is the money? Where is the money, Mr. Speaker? In the year 2019 alone, 97 billion Ghana cedis was used for consumption. 97 billion Ghana cedis was used for consumption. And that is the question that we need to ask. Mr. Speaker, I will take you to the year 2020. The year 2020, the NPP received 55.1 billion Ghana cedis for the purposes of tax and non-tax revenue. Mr. Speaker, for the records, tax revenue 42.4 billion. Non-tax revenue was 4.9 billion. Oil and gas receipt was 3.7 billion. Other revenues, which include energy sector levies, was 2.7 billion, and they received grants representing 1.2 billion. If you are to add all of them together, Mr. Speaker, they had 55.1 billion in tax and non-tax revenue. 1 year, 2020. That's not enough. This government borrowed 73 billion Ghana cedis. 73 billion Ghana cedis in 1 year, 2020, the election year. 73 billion Ghana cedis. Speaker, just add 73 to the 55. It will give you 128 billion Ghana cedis 1 year, 2020. Total resource envelope that this administration had. 128 billion Ghana cedis. Speaker, the question is, what did they use this money for? What did they use this money for? The Speaker, at the time, they spent only 2 billion Ghana cedis on roads. 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. So if you are to receive 128 billion and you use only 2.2 billion, you can never say that you money predominantly for the construction of roads. It cannot be the case because they spent only 1.7% of the total resources that this administration had. In fact, even if you stretch it to include the entire capital expenditure for the year 2022, for the year 2020, capital expenditure was 12 billion and 83 million Ghana cedis for that year. 12 billion and 83 million. That represents only 94% of the entire resource envelope that this administration had for the year 2020. So, Speaker, I dare ask, the 125 billion Ghana cedis, where is the money? What exactly did this government use the money for? The time has come for us to ask for accountability from this administration. Mr. Speaker, because this is the luckiest administration that we have ever seen in the history of this administration, in the history of this country. Mr. Speaker, as if that is not enough, I'll take you to the year 2021. The year 2021, the MPP administration had 70.9 billion Ghana cedis from tax and non-tax revenue. 70.9. Outside that, they borrowed 60.2 billion Ghana cedis in that year. 60.2 billion Ghana cedis in that year. If you are to add the tax and non-tax revenue and the means, the total resource envelope that the administration had was 131 Ghana cedis, representing 21.8 billion US dollars. 131 billion Ghana cedis, representing 21.8 billion US dollars. The Speaker, again, they spent only 1.9 billion Ghana cedis on roads, representing a paltry 1.5%. So it cannot be the case that they use the money
predominantly for the construction of roads. The Speaker, even if you stretch to include capital expenditure, they spent only 16.9 billion Ghana cedis for the purposes of capital expenditure. So clearly, that only represents 12.9% of the total resource envelope. So the argument here is, where is the money? The Speaker, we demand accountability. Ghana demands accountability from President Akufo-Addo. Because, the Speaker, this is very important. Because if you receive so much resources, it is only right that you account for the money and not to show us a pamphlet full of pictures showing us roads that cost nothing. Mr. Speaker, this is important. We need those information. Mr. Speaker, I'll take you to 2022. I'll take you to 2022. In 2022, the MPP received 98 billion from tax and non-tax revenue. Tax and non-tax revenue, 98 billion Ghana cedis, and borrowed 223 billion Ghana cedis. The two put together, they had borrowed total resource envelope for that year, last year, 301 billion, representing $37.5 billion. Where is the money? You only spent 3.9 billion Ghana cedis only on roads, again representing 1.2%. So your record, Mr. Speaker, I don't know who briefed the president, but that is very abysmal if you look at the number. The performance is abysmal. Mr. Speaker, no wonder the president's scorecard is F. So clearly, the money went somewhere else. So, Mr. Speaker, what I have done is to sum these numbers together so that we can see entirely, in a period of 6 years, from January 2017 to December 2022, how much this administration has been able to accumulate and how they spend this, and how they have spent this money. Speaker, to surprise you to know that from January 2017 to December 2022, the NPP administration has collected taxes and non-tax revenue amounting to 383 billion cedis. Taxes and non-tax, 383 billion Ghana cedis. They have also borrowed 455.7 billion Ghana cedis. The two put together will give you 820.5 billion Ghana cedis. This represents 130 billion US dollars. Mr. Speaker, this excludes what they took from Sino Hydro. This also excludes what they actually took for ESLA bond, energy bond. If you are to add all of this together, Mr. Speaker, we are talking 800, it may be 833 billion Ghana cedis, about 132 billion US dollars. Mr. Speaker, this is big. Yet this administration is failing to tell us. But all what I can tell you is that from the same 2017 to 2022, they have only used 10.6 billion Ghana cedis to construct roads. 10.6 billion Ghana cedis to construct roads. So this 10.6 billion represent only 1% of the 320 billion Ghana cedis they have received. So it can't be the case. It cannot be the case that the money was used predominantly for the construction of roads. Mr. Speaker, even if you stretch it to capital expenditure, for the entire 6 years, they have spent 53.3 billion US Ghana cedis for the construction, for the cost of capital expenditure. This represents only 6.5% of the total resource envelope of 820.5 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, there's a saying that to whom much is given, much is expected. To whom much is given, much is expected. I'm surprised that the president, after receiving a big amount of 820 billion, can only come to Parliament and show this pamphlet. Mr. Speaker, to show only this pamphlet, 820 billion US Ghana cedis is all what you need to transform a country. 130 billion US dollars is all what you need to transform a country. Yet he has made our country poorer and poorer. So if you receive X amount of money, you should be able to show to the people of Ghana how much you have contributed. This is the only government in our history that has seen so much resources. Mr. Speaker, the President, again, in the State of the Nation address, if I may refer you to page 10, Mr. Speaker, I read, he said that a critical component of the measures we are implementing to address the current economic crisis is the debt operation involving debt, both domestic debt and external debt. The debt operation is at returning the country to debt sustainability path by 2028. By reducing the debt to GDP ratio on a general classification basis and in present value terms from 103% in 2022 to 55% in 2028. Speaker, the management of this country to His Excellency the President, Ghana's debt to GDP was sustainable. Ghana's debt was 55.6% of our GDP. What we are witnessing today is that our debt is now 103% of GDP. The Speaker, clearly, this government is telling us that it will take us 2020 before we bring the country back to debt sustainability. The Speaker, you took over a country at debt at 55%. Now you are saying that it will take you 12 years after taking this country before you bring it back to debt sustainability. All what this government is trying to say is that they have sent Ghana back years. From 2017 to 2023, 12 years. So what he has said is he's admitted that he has sat for 12 good years. Mr. Speaker, yet he's saying that he did not borrow recklessly. Mr. Speaker, I'll prove to you that His Excellency the President and his government, particularly the Finance Minister, has been super reckless in the borrowings. Mr. Speaker, reckless is understatement. The word should be super reckless and overly incompetent in the management of our debt. Because, Mr. Speaker, this government only knows one debt, one problem, one loan. One loan, one problem. That's all what they know. And it looks clearly that all what they know how to do best is to look for debt and to use it only for consumption expenditure. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2017, they borrowed 20 billion. Again, in the year 2018, 33 billion. In the year 2019, 45.1. 2020, 73.4. 2020, 60.2 billion. 2022, 223.9 billion Ghana cedis. The Speaker, all put together, they have borrowed 455.7 billion Ghana cedis. This represents $68.4 billion. So you've used 6 years to borrow almost $70 billion, yet you are struggling to show us the money. Majority Leader, where is the money? We need to ask this question, where exactly is the money? The Speaker, if you borrow so much money, $70 billion, the Speaker, and I'm being very charitable, because this amount excludes Sino-Hydro debt. This amount excludes ESLA bond. If you add the ESLA bond of $8 billion and add the Sino-Hydro of approximately $2 billion and convert it into the current exchange rate, Mr. Speaker, this amount, you can't pronounce it. This is a government that is expert in borrowing. They can borrow and borrow, and yet they will not be able to show you what they use the money for. $20 billion in just 6 years. Mr. Speaker, we need to ask the question. Now, where exactly is the money? Mr. Speaker, clearly, all what this government knows how to do is to use the money for the purposes of consumption. Mr. Speaker, this is a country that was built on accountability. The time has come. The time has come for us to call our minister responsible for finance and the president, his cousin, to account to the people of Ghana how they use this borrowed money. Mr. Speaker, this pamphlet, and I can prove to you something interesting. I will take you to the same pamphlet the president presented to us. The pamphlet the president presented on page 62 of 231. And Mr. Speaker, at least I know my region very well, Central Region, my region very well. I can confirm to you that entire roads that the president is saying that they have constructed during his tenure as president, none of it was financed through debt. None of it. They have been wasteful in the resource allocation and how they have used Ghana's resources. It is a shame. It is a shame that a country's resource can be used in such an abysmal manner. The Speaker, we call on His Excellency President to, as a matter of urgency, appear before us and to deliver to us a proper accounting mechanism, how he used the 130 billion US dollars that he has received so far since he became the president. Mr. Speaker, when I've heard that the president tried to blame COVID, and also Russia-Ukraine war, as if the bombs that Russia is throwing at Ukraine are landing in Accra. Mr. Speaker, certainly that is not the case. Mr. Speaker, clearly, the truth is that the crisis we are going through is self-inflicted. Crisis we are going through is self-inflicted. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of inflation, the Bank of Ghana, under His Excellency President Akufo-Addo, has been most abused in the history of our country. It's the most abused central bank in the history of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I remember in the year 2016, the then running mate to President Akufo-Addo, now the Vice President, had called a press conference and he has said that he has worked at the Bank of Ghana before and he knows exactly that the money is in Ghana. The Speaker, not knowing that all what he was trying to say is that he knows that the Bank of Ghana can print money for government, for the purposes of government expenditure. The Speaker, the central bank, all what they do is to print money. And the inflation that we are seeing here is caused largely by the printing of currency by the Bank of Ghana. The Speaker, this printing started in 2019. They printed 2019, immediately when IMF left, printed 2020, printed 2021, and they are printing 2022 and 2023. The Speaker, I can confirm to you that from January to date, they have so far printed 4 billion Ghana cedis. January to date, so they are still printing. When will the Bank of Ghana stop printing? Last year, 2022, they printed 50 billion Ghana cedis. 2021, they printed 43 billion Ghana cedis. 2020, they printed 35 billion Ghana cedis. So this is a bank that prints money. No wonder we are seeing inflation at 53%. Now I'm told it's 52%. Now Ghana's inflation, we call it hyperinflation. We have seen hyperinflation the first time since 1983. First time since 1983. So all what President Akufo-Addo has done is to take us back to 1983. Mr. Speaker, we are in trouble. We are in trouble because all what we are seeing is self-inflicted. When His Excellency the Vice President told us then in opposition, that they know that there's money in Ghana, he was telling the people of Ghana that he knows the central bank has a printing machine and they will print money for us. No wonder we are seeing a lot of printing. The Speaker, the policy rate that we are seeing is as a result of the printing of money by the central bank. Printing of money by the central bank. They inherited a policy rate of 25%. The policy rate, the Bank of Ghana monetary policy rate is at 28% and counting. It will get worse. It will get worse because they have to mop the inflation, the excess liquidity in the market. It will get worse. Mr. Speaker, when that this country's economy is heading to the ditch, we want them and ask the Minister of Finance and the government to act. I remember the famous quote from the minister, and Mr. Speaker, I repeat. He said, we are not going to IMF. What we do, we are not going back. The consequences are there. We are a proud nation. We have resources. We have the capacity. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We are not people of short sight. We are the shining star of Africa. We can do what we want to do if we can speak that one language and ensure we burden share in the issues ahead. So, Speaker, as we speak, we have gone back to IMF. And this same person who said this is still in office. The same person is still in office. So, Speaker, I beg to ask, are we a serious country? Are we a serious country? Because the truth is, you can't say this, run a whole country's economy, our livelihood into a ditch, and still be staying in office. The man must go. And His Excellency is failing to act because he's his cousin. Mr. Speaker, the wages of nepotism is what we are seeing today. The wages of nepotism we are seeing today. Because, Mr. Speaker, he's failing to act because of his relationship with the man. And the same person has run our livelihood round completely. He has sent us to a point of no return, yet he's in office. After insisting that he won't go to IMF, today he's in IMF. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the President, are the consequences no longer dire? You need to answer those questions. Have we now lost our pride as a nation after going to IMF? We to ask, have they finished off all our national resources? Has the President and his government lost you to run the affairs of the country after going to IMF? Did you even know, even have the capacity in the first place as a country? So, Speaker, clearly our finance minister has showed us that he doesn't have the capacity to run the affairs. And the economic management team have failed abysmally. Abysmally. Ghana is in gargantuan major crisis. A crisis of no return. The Speaker, according to His Excellency the President, it will take us another 5 years, in fact 6 years to recover. 6 years to recover. The Speaker, I think 6 years is an understatement. Ghana will need 15 years to recover from this mess that has been created by His Excellency the President. We need a lot more than 15 years. The Speaker, I want to know, has our shining star, the black star, been dimmed since we went to IMF? Are we now speaking from different languages after going to IMF, according to the finance minister? Mr. Speaker, has the Almighty God now used our languages? The minister was saying that we will now have to. We will now have to. Mr. Speaker, these are things that we need to find out. In any case, has Ghana now become a country with short sight? No. No. The Speaker, clearly, in short, even in failure, Ghana is struggling and failing. Even in failure, we are struggling. In fact, we are begging to fail under His Excellency the President, the black star of Africa, the shining example of Africa. The best story one can get in our continent. Today, the rising star of Africa, the black star, the star has dimmed under Ken Oforiatta, and he's still in office. That is why, Mr. Speaker, the time has come for us to take a decision. And the decision call on us as Parliament to the Speaker act. The Speaker, I know you are watching your time, but I've done only 30 minutes. I still have another 30 minutes to go. Mr. Speaker, now I will take you to the size of government and wasteful government expenditures. The size of government and wasteful government expenditures. Mr. Speaker, it is certainly unquestionable to know that Ghana has added about 82 billion Ghana cedis to its expenditures compared from 2022-23 budget. 82 billion. Even in crisis. Even in crisis, instead of you cutting expenditure, you have added 82 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, during the budget presentation last year, and during the consideration of estimates, as the ranking member of the Finance Committee then, Mr. Speaker, I sat with our colleagues to interrogate the budget of the Office of the President and had the privilege to see the expenditures. Mr. Speaker, some of them are mind-boggling. I'll give you some of them. That's a fraction, some of them. The President Operational Enhancement Expenditure cost the sovereign Ghanaian taxpayer a mind-boggling 59.4 billion Ghana cedis. 59.4 million Ghana cedis, operational expenditure, even in crisis. Even in crisis, the fuel bill paid at the presidency within 9 months, under review is 51.1 million Ghana cedis, fuel alone. Fuel alone, 9 months, 51.1 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, this is a government that informed us that they are reducing fuel coupons. Yet you spend 51.1 million Ghana cedis. 51.1 million Ghana cedis on fuel alone. President Akufo-Addo's regional tours, his regional tours alone, cost the taxpayer at the time a staggering 16.9 million Ghana cedis. Just the tour, 16 regional, 16.9 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, it will surprise you. Ties and batteries for official vehicles costed the tax an unbelievable 15 million Ghana cedis. Ties, add Mr. Speaker, add ties. What kind of ties are we talking about? Mr. Speaker, I see that is not enough. The last cabinet retreat, they spent 4.8 million Ghana cedis. 1 day cabinet retreat. Mr. Speaker, as I said, this is self-inflicted. No one here blames COVID. No one here should blame Russia and Ukraine. These ties, we did not buy these ties for Russia or Ukraine. The Speaker, payment for new vehicles. The Speaker, payment for new vehicles cost the sovereign Ghanaian taxpayer 6.5 million. New vehicles. The Speaker, this is so distressing to me as a person, because the finance minister appeared before us here and said to us that there is a ban on the importation of official vehicles. And after announcing to us and to the people of Ghana that there's a ban on official vehicles, they use 6.5 million Ghana cedis to procure new vehicles. You see, policy inconsistency. The Speaker, leadership is everything. You can't announce one thing and do the other. Charity begins at. If you announce that you want to do X, just do X for the purposes of credibility. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, there's no credibility here. An additional expenditure on equipment, fittings, at the office of the president alone costed the taxpayer some fantastic 7 million Ghana cedis. Telecommunication service, internet alone at the office of the president cost you 20 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, what sort of internet is this? What sort of internet is this? Internet, 20 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, in the midst of our economic crisis of such magnitude, conventional wisdom alone, Mr. Speaker, teaches us that a responsible government take basic steps and cut its coat according to it. So its behavior must reflect the terrible we are in at this time. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is in terrible times. We as leaders, we the privileged ones, must lead by example. Mr. Speaker, we should cut the size of government and reduce our expenditure so that we are not seen that we are shifting the burden from ourselves to the taxpayer. Mr. Speaker, government, Ghanaians all over, Ghanaians both home and abroad, have called on us to reduce the size of government. Because, Mr. Speaker, the truth is that it is the major guzzler of public funds. Mr. Speaker, the president is failing to act. His ministers, they are all failing to act. And it will surprise you to know that if you go to the office of the president, there are certain positions that need revision immediately. And I'll take you through some of the positions that need immediate revision. Example, if you go to the office of the president, he has youth ambassador for diaspora affairs. Well, that person, what is he doing there? The Speaker, he must go home immediately. Policy associate, what is he doing there? He must go home immediately. Chief executive of public sector reforms. The Speaker, what is that person doing? He must go home immediately. Overseer of the National Cathedral. He has an overseer of the National Cathedral at the office of the president. The Speaker,
home immediately. Immediately. The Speaker, as if that is not enough. As if that is not enough. He has at the office of the President, Church Relations Manager. Church Relations Manager. The Speaker, he also has a Diaspora Church Mobilization Officer. Diaspora Church Mobilization Officer. What at all is the person doing? The Speaker, as if we are running a church at the office of the President. The office of the President is not a church. I'm a proud Christian. I go to church, but that is not my church. That is the seat of government. It's for serious business. The Speaker, that person needs to go home immediately. He also has policy and coordinator analyst. And then aside that, this is what surprises me. There's a person called a focal person, la francophonie. Focal person, la francophonie. Then he had technical director, la francophonie. Then he has coordinator, special development initiative secretariat. Another one, director of special development secretariat. Managers of operations and programs. All of these people are paid under Article 71. Article 71, they are paid like you as members. The Speaker, some of them are paid like deputy ministers. The Speaker, this is contained in the document that the President presented. The Speaker, I'll give you another one. We have 5 technical communication assistants at the office of the President. Technical advisor, Zongo Development Authority. They have 2 technical advisors, Special Development Initiative Secretariat. He also have technical advisor, Political Affairs. He has presidential advisor responsible for NAPCO, Office Management Executive Associate, technical director to the presidential advisor on media, and he has 6 data managers. What data are they mining? In times of crisis, in times of crisis, you cut your coat according to your size. This is because we are failing as a country to service our debt. Today we are bankrupt. Today, Ghana bankrupt. We are simply insolvent. We cannot service our debt. Yet we have all of these people at post. What is their qualification? This speaker, Abazan warrior. A phantom man will say, what are they doing there? This speaker, and this is serious. So we call on His Excellency the President to act. I also heard the President. I heard him loud and clear. He said that Ghana is doing well with free speeches and press freedom, and that even diplomats are able to share their views on national issues. I don't know if someone, the Minister of Information is not here, whether he's briefing him. The truth is, in 2016, he inherited a country with press index of 26 out of 180 countries. 26 press index, free press index, 26. Today, Ghana is number 60 out of 180 countries. Today. So clearly, we have declined by 34 places under his watch. I don't want to say that this administration is the one that anytime you speak and if you don't speak well, they will come after you. But that is what it is. That is what it is. Mr. Speaker, free speech is now, a major concern. And that even members of parliament from the majority side, some of them, after they held a press conference and actually called on the Minister of Finance to leave office, they are going after their seat for saying that. They are going after their seat. The Speaker, for doing what is obvious, for standing for Ghana, they are going after their seat. They are going after their seat. The Speaker, we can't build a country like this. You should be able to speak freely. You should be able to speak to correct the ills of society. If one person is crushing all of you, it is your responsibility to stand up for your country and to call that person out. The Speaker, today press freedom in Ghana is going down. We are dropped by 34. So if they will go after you, they are for me, then what will they do to me? That is why, Mr. Speaker, we should be careful. We should be careful. Mr. Speaker,
Now I'll tell you the true state of our nation. The true state of our nation. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians have become extremely impoverished. Livelihoods have deteriorated significantly. Mr. President has made the ordinary Ghanaian poorer and poorer. That is the true state. Mr. Speaker, the cost of living has deteriorated significantly. Coupled with the depreciation value of our local currency, the Ghanaian cedi, with an inflation that we have never seen before for a very long time. Mr. Speaker, for a very long time. The truth is that transport fares are at the highest so far. Again, Mr. Speaker, food and energy prices have risen astronomically. The energy minister is here. The truth is that from September 2022 to date, they have increased electricity by 59%. 59%. This is according to a letter written by His Excellency, by the Finance Minister to energy IPPs. 59%. Yet, this has been kept outside Parliament as if nothing has happened. Why is it not featuring in the Parliament in the budget now? Mr. Speaker, cost of doing business has actually skyrocketed due to an unprecedented rise in the interest rate. Businesses struggle now to borrow at 40-45%. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the bank to borrow 40%, what business at all will you do and be able to make profit in excess of 45%? Exchange, in fact, interest rate 45% at some banks. If you go to some of the microfinance, if you are not careful, you get interest almost at 100%. The Speaker, somebody says that you have to say lending rate, but interest rate and lending rate, they are the same. The truth is that Ghana's bonds have been downgraded to junk. Our credit worthiness has been downgraded completely to junk or useless. My colleague, the Honorable Adongo, once said that he's more credit worthy than the government of Ghana, and he's right. He can attract loans at a cheaper rate than the government of Ghana. GDP growth outlook is at its lowest. That is a fact. Almost SOEs are bankrupt or insolvent, including the giant Ghana Cocoa Board. They can't be debt. Cocoa Board, the giant Ghana Cocoa Board, the almighty Cocoa Board is on its knees under this administration. Now we are seeing Ghana beyond aid being transitioned into Ghana of begging. Ghana beyond aid is now Ghana of begging. Of begging, yeah, you're patch out. Mr. Speaker, apart from vaccines, our president has begged the finance minister of Germany. In fact, he's begging the finance minister of Germany to beg for Ghana, to beg China. So he's begging someone to pass Ghana beyond aid. Mr. Speaker, the entire economic indicators have deteriorated. The entire macroeconomic indicators have deteriorated. Mr. Speaker, our president said it is his hope that Ghana will get, in fact, he did not even say it is his hope. He said on authority that Ghana will be getting the IMF board approval by end of this month. Mr. Speaker, I don't know who is briefing His Excellency the President. Someone somewhere is doing a terrible job. Ghana will not be able to get an IMF board approved by the end of this month. Because, Mr. Speaker, even the board documents are not prepared. There are things we need to meet, and this is what we call financing assurances. We need to get China to give Ghana financing assurance. One, we are ready to accept a haircut. China has not agreed. The kind of haircut China is expected to take more than that of Honorable Okujeto-Ablakwa's haircut. Mr. Speaker, aside that, we are also expected as a country
competing for?
We expected as a country to get financial assurance from parish clubs, including Germany. Now Germans are telling us that go at the size of your government, reduce government expenditure before they accept restructuring. Yet you don't care, and yet you are saying that you will go on Ethiopia. Mr. Speaker, that is why we are saying that we will not approve new ministers. It is nationalistic. It is not in the interest of one person. We do not hate anyone here. Mr. Speaker, we are colleagues. But the truth is we are doing this for the people of Ghana. And it must be done for the country, because if the president is not ready to act, someone must act for him. And we will act for them. Because, Mr. Speaker, until that is done, Germany, who is a major partner of parish clubs, may not give us the financing assurance for the purposes of before IMF will go to the board. Mr. Speaker, that is a major concern. That is a major concern. We also engage the Eurobond holders to get financing assurances from them. Financing assurances from the Eurobond holders. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we have only informed the Eurobond holders that Ghana is going to restructure our debt, and that we are not in a position to repay our debt. So as we speak, we have defaulted in the repayment of our debt. Ghana is not able to pay. Mr. Speaker, this is worse than Yemchia. This is Yemchia because we don't have the money to pay. This is the worst form of our champion's government. So we have seen a reincarnation of our champion's government under President Akufo-Addo, where we say that Yemchia, we don't have the money. Mr. Speaker, our loans, the local banks here, all the loans that we approved as a half, we are not able to service those debts. Yet, the president is only interested in appointing ministers, increasing the size of government, and living large. Someone must tell him in the face. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we think that somebody must tell the president in the face that the time has come for him to act. And he must act now for our livelihood. Mr. Speaker, to conclude, Mr. Speaker, I beg to say, the former Chief Justice, Justice Sophia Kufu, once said, "This is not Medofo Adada. This is Medofo Edimewu." Indeed, MPP Ediganewu. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that this government inherited so much goodwill. The people of Ghana gave them the benefit of the doubt. We have contributed so much resources for this administration. NDC managed with 1 oil field. They've had 3 oil fields. Accumulated so much, borrowed so much, had 820 billion Ghana cedis, had 130 billion US dollars. Yet, Mr. Speaker, they can only show us toilet. Mr. Speaker, it's so difficult for one to comprehend the amount of resources this administration has had so far, yet they are struggling to point to what they've been able to do. The mess is just too much. The mess is just too much. And someone must inform the president that his legacy won't be good. The MPP will be remembered as the only political party that our economy from a healthy economy and landed it in the mortuary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minority Leader, he spoke for 50 minutes. 50 minutes. So I will invite Honorable Majority Leader Desompahine to also conclude the debate.
Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. And let me congratulate my colleague, the Minority Leader, for critiquing the message on the state of the nation. And I must commend him because he really went into figures, even though I disagree with him in his own analysis. The Speaker, I disagree with him because he set his own examination questions, provided his own marking scheme, and then went on to mark down the President's statement. Mr. Speaker, nowhere President's statement did he tell Ghanaians that he spent all the revenue on the construction of roads. Nowhere. Nowhere did the President say that. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the Minority Leader, who is a finance person, knows that, yes, if you contract loans and you don't draw down, you will not count it as part of your debt stock. He knows that. Mr. Speaker, he knows that. Why he opted to go the path that he elected to do, it's really mind-boggling. I'll forgive him for his trespasses. Mr. Speaker, then the Minority Leader should know that given the current circumstances, in particular relating to inflation and the exchange rate depreciation, assuming this government did not borrow, it is post-2016. The debt to GDP, because the exchange rate depreciation was still brought up. The debt to GDP was still brought up. Mr. Speaker, he's a man of finance, and I thought this is rudimentary that you should appreciate. Mr. Speaker, so you see, he's getting it totally wrong. That's why I'm forgiving his trespasses. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana, he says, exists just to print money. I'll get into that. Mr. Speaker, again, let me thank you for the opportunity offered to conclude a debate on the motion that this House thanks His Excellency the President for the message on the state of the nation which he delivered to Parliament on Wednesday, the 8th of March 2023. The motion to thank the President was ably moved by the Honourable Member for Efutu, who doubles up as the Deputy Majority Leader, the Honourable Alexander Kwamina Afenyo-Markin. Speaker, as I remember in March last year, the overall architecture of national development is established by the directive principles of state policy. And it provides the broad vision, the overarching agenda for national development. And these are set out in the political objectives in Article 35 of the 1992 Republican Constitution, economic objectives in Article 36, social objectives in Article 37, education objectives in 38, cultural objectives in Article 39, international relations Article 40, and duties of a responsible citizen in Article 41. The President started off in acknowledging the presence of distinguished personalities, among whom this time were the former presidents of the Republic, Presidents John Akufo and John Dramani Mahama. In 2021, after the 2020 elections, Mr. Mahama did not respond to the invitation to attend the presentation on the message on the state of the nation. The former president was again absent at last year's event, and I lamented his absence and stated unequivocally that it was not a good account of an immediate past president. I insisted that it was not good for the unity of the country, regardless of our political differences. It is the reason why the sheer presence of former President Mahama must be commended this time. The spirit of togetherness as a people, as a country, must be predominant wherever and in whatever we do. Thus far, President Mahama has attended one of the 6 events involving the delivery of the message State of the Nation. By any reckoning, it's not a good mark, but one can only hope that at least on account of the hilarious welcome accorded him by the minority group this time, the former president would be inspired to attend subsequent events in his capacity as a former of this country. The Speaker, the date for the presentation of the message coincided with the day set internationally to honor women, and the President seized the occasion to celebrate women everywhere, in particular Ghanaian women, for their contributions in the realizations and aspirations of humankind. Appreciating the presence of women leaders at both local and national fronts, the President applauded them for their contributions to advancing the rights, enhancing equality, and improving the living conditions and quality of lives of the citizenry, women and men. The Speaker, we must also thank the President for his recognition, except to say that, recognizably, there are many areas that as a country we haven't done well enough. For the umpteenth time, it is important to remind ourselves that since January 1993, this House has failed to live up to its responsibility imposed by Article 22, that is, enacting and legislating to regulate the property rights of spouses. Most spouses who suffer deprivation are women. Mr. Speaker, Article 26 Clause 2 provides, and I quote, all customary practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of the person are prohibited, unquote. There are still witches' camps in this country. That is the state of our nation today. What are we doing about it as a legislative assembly of the country? Female genital mutilation is still being practiced. That is dehumanizing. It is injurious to the physical and mental health of young females. And that's the state of our nation. What is government and parliament doing about them? The Speaker, I just returned from the Inter-Parliamentary Youth Conference that held in Manama, Bahrain. The conference reiterated the call on all parliaments in the world to have at least 30% women membership latest by 2025. The average of women in parliament is 26%. In Ghana's parliament, women representation is only 14%. That is of our nation. What should be the way forward for this country? The Speaker, it has been suggested by some people that to the extent that the 1992 Republican Constitution prescribes the first past post system, so to that same extent shall women representation in electoral position, in elected positions remain unequitable. Do we amend the Constitution to ensure this? Let us ponder and determine, because for now, that indeed is the state of the nation. The Speaker, the President, in his preambular pages, eulogized the country's democratic credentials, and whilst acknowledging that the journey has been challenging, nonetheless entreated Ghanaians to remain resolute in our pursuit. In full recognition that colonial rule, dictatorship, one-party rule, and military rule, regardless of however they christen themselves, yield little dividends to the ruled. As a former member of parliament himself, the president identified with parliament's celebration of 30 years of uninterrupted constitutional governance and acknowledged with considerable appreciation the role Parliament plays in upholding constitutionalism and how come Parliament, as a bulwark of democracy, is the arm of government that coup makers prescribe, leaving the judiciary and the executive to continue to function in one form or the other. The President emphasized his wish, therefore, for cooperation and unity of purpose among the parties and factions in Parliament, and concluded on the need, and I'm quoting him, even more bipartisan maturity to meet the challenges confronting us this time. Speaker, that's on page 2, paragraph 4 of the President's message. The Speaker, as I have indicated earlier, Article 67, which compels the President to deliver the message of the State of the Nation, that directly relates to the content of the message. However, the state of the country is the situation or set of circumstances that pertains to now. And the present message is the account of the pertaining condition of the country as he finds it. The President, at the very outset, admitted that any honest assessment of our country's situation would necessarily involve, and I'm quoting him, the gravity of the economic situation of our country and how we can quickly stabilize the economy and work our way back to the period of rapid economic growth, unquote. Continuing, the President did not mince words when he said, and again I quote, our currency has been buffeted, our inflation rate has been very high, and for the first time in our lives, changes have become the language of everyday conversation, unquote. The Speaker, that is brutal frankness. A lot of critics have jumped onto the bandwagon to blame the current administration for where we are today. And it's the reason why the President stated it would necessarily have to include what state it was in yesterday, the state it is in today, and what it will be in tomorrow, based on reasonable grounds of expectations. The Speaker, the President took us down memory lane when he related to his own in 2020. To be precise, February 20th, 2020. The evidence of Akufo-Addo's performance is in the standard economic indicators. The Speaker, my colleague, has related to it. GDP growth averaging 7% between 2017 and 2019. Gradually reducing inflation such that it hit its lowest level, 7.8% in January 2020. And that is since the rebirth of constitutional democracy. Having a fiscal deficit below 5% of GDP for 3 consecutive years, something that the NDC could never achieve. That was the first in 40 years. Mr. Speaker, having a surplus balance of trade for 3 years running, that was the first time in over 20 years. My colleague, the minority leader, was the Deputy Finance Minister. Let him relate to these facts. Were they able to achieve that? 1/4 of that performance. Talk is cheap. Mr. Speaker, rates were climbing now. The country's current account deficits were manifestly shrinking, and the depreciation of Ghana cedi was at its lowest for any first-time administration since January 1983. Ghana's 7% average annual GDP growth places it among the league of 4 fastest growing economies in the world in 3 years. Mr. Speaker, the international investor community recognized this fact, and that is how come Ghana became the largest recipient of foreign direct investment in West Africa sub-region. All these indicators have registered strongly in February 2020. Then from nowhere, COVID-19 struck and pulled the rug from under our feet. The Speaker, COVID-19 caused lockdowns, as you all do know, in the foremost human settlements in the country. We were forced to close our airports and land borders Schools, markets, factories shut down. Tourism and hospitality industry crumbled. The very vulnerable to be served hot meals and later essential food items to prepare and feed themselves. Personal equipment had to be procured and supplied to frontline health workers, all in a bid to save lives and livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, press conferences were organized by the minority group in Parliament, led by the minority spokesperson. The pivotal matter was that government was not providing enough equipment, PPEs, for this country. We needed money to do that. We were critiquing government, that government was not spending enough. The many press that we organized in this house. The Speaker, is it not ironical that today, the same people who insisted yesterday that government was not spending enough are now the same who have turned around to loudly proclaim that government engaged in reckless expenditure, especially in respect of COVID-19 expenditure. Where does truth stand in these matters? The Speaker, but to go back and debate on the state of the economy, it goes without saying that the next elections will not only be fought on the state of the economy today, no thanks to the rampaging of the coronavirus and also the Russian-Ukrainian imbroglio, but also on the management of the economy. In this, the track record of the two parties is crystal clear. The Speaker, to all who have eyes to see and ears to hear, except persons whose stock in trade is propaganda. The Speaker, President Mahama was the one who introduced a new phraseology in Ghana's parliament. Evidence-based facts. What are the facts on the economy yesterday? And what are the facts on the economy today? Speaker, it is important to restate. And when the minority leader was relating to economic issues, the Speaker, he refused, just to satisfy himself, to compare the track record of the NDC when he was the Deputy Finance Minister to the current situation. I will refresh your mind. Mr. Speaker, it is important to restate that the Ghanaian economy grew steadily from 3% in 2000 through 4.2% under President Kufuor in 2001, 4.5% in 2002, 5.2% in 2003, 5.6% in 2004, 5.9% in 2005, 6.4% in 2006, 6.3% in 2007, and 8.4% in 2008, later rising to 9.1% after the economy was rebased. This is steady growth, growing steadily, calculatedly. Mr. Speaker, the economy expanded profoundly under President Kufuor from $5.1 billion in 2000 to $28 billion in 2008, and that was over 450% increase. Amidst the global and financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, Ghana was transformed from a highly indebted poor country, HIPIC, to a lower middle income economy on the frontier of emerging market status. Now enter the Mills-Mahama regime and declining growth rate set in. There was no COVID. There was no Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Speaker, from the 9.1% growth in 2008, the GDP swung down to 8%. That's under your watch. 4.8% in 2009, then 7.9% in 2010, 14.0% in 2011. The Speaker, one must be quick to add that the 2011 happened only because it was the first time petroleum money got factored into our accounts. First time. And when we discovered petroleum and brought it here, you said it was palm kernel. You said it was palm kernel oil. And yet, you were the first beneficiaries. Mr. Speaker, for 2012, GDP growth climbed down to 9.3% and spiraled downwards to 7.3% in 2013. Mr. Speaker, for 2014, GDP growth rate Nosedived. 2014, minority leader, thank you, listen. Under your watch, 2014, GDP growth rate nosedived to 2.9%. In 2015, it plunged further to 2.2%. There was no conflict. There was no Russian conflict. Mr. Speaker, it was the GDP growth rate until that time in 37 years. 37 years, the GDP performance. Mr. Speaker, for 2016, the economy grew by 3.4%. Mr. Speaker, that was the worst performance aside the preceding year in 22 years under your watch. You are the Deputy Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, what this means is that under President Mahama, GDP growth rate averaged only 3.9% for the entire 4-year period. 3.9%. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the ECOWAS regional economy grew at 2.8%. Ghana grew at 8.1%. Mr. Speaker, Ghana grew at 8%. It was oil. Didn't you have oil at the time? Please don't meet and deceive Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, that was up from the shambolic 3.4 that we bequeathed to the succeeding government. That was phenomenal. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the ECOWAS average GDP was 3.5%. Ghana's economy grew at 6.2%. That performance was surpassed only by one country in the entire sub-region, and that was Gambia, which grew at 6.9%. In terms of economic growth, 1983 was the annus horribilis for Ghana, characterized by intense drought and bushfires and the deportation of over 500,000 Ghanaians from Nigeria back to Ghana. Country ground to ground zero in GDP terms. That is why the 1984 growth rate was more than percent of what was witnessed in 1983. Aside that, there has never been any succeeding year where the GDP has grown by more than 100%. And yet that was what was achieved under Kufuor in 2017. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the Kufuor's arbitration figures outperformed JDMs in 2016 by 182.6%. Never happened under your watch. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the ECOWAS average GDP was 3.5%. Yet under Kufuor, the economy grew by 6.5%. That means that in the first 3 years of Kufuor regime, before COVID struck, GDP growth has averaged 7.0%, as compared to your shambolic performance of 3.9% for 4 years. Mr. Speaker, so the management of the economy, you people don't come anywhere close. Mr. Speaker, in the COVID-19 year of 2020, the ECOWAS average GDP was negative 0.6%. Ghana did positive 0.5%, which was the third highest the West African Monetary Zone area, after Liberia had made negative 2.5%, Nigeria negative 1.8%, and Sierra Leone negative 2.0%. The Speaker, in 2021, ECOWAS average GDP was 4.4. Indeed, in the WAMS countries, embracing Ghana, Guinea, Liberia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, average was 3.7. Ghana's GDP was 5.4%, even in the COVID year, which was still much better than your performance for the entire 4 years. Mr. Speaker, statistics lie. And those are the indicators for measuring your efficiency, your competence, or otherwise. The highest in the WAMS in 2022, Ghana's GDP registered a provisional growth of 3.6. That's 2022. That is the worst. GDP growth under Kufuor. But even the 3.6 is much better. The 3.4 that would be Akufo-Addo regime in 2016. You, management, you don't come anywhere close. Don't lead yourself and mislead the people of this country. The Speaker, so the 3.6 GDP growth, that's even provisional, in 2020, is still much better than the average national GDP growth rate of 2.8. 2.8 under the NDC John Mahama in your last 3 years. Your last 3 years, the average growth was 2.8%. Yes, in our worst years, ours is still much better than your own track. Mr. Speaker, in order to strengthen the productive capacity of the economy, macroeconomic fundamentals must be strengthened. I agree with my colleague. That precisely is what the current government has set out to do. Nigeria, undoubtedly, is the strongest economy, not only but indeed in the entirety of Africa. Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to compare our performance to that of Nigeria, not with dwarfs, but that of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, ECOWAS average GDP was 3.6. Ghana registered 6.2. Nigeria registered 1.9. In 2019, the ECOWAS average was 3.5. Ghana registered 6.5. Nigeria registered 2.2. 20, the ECOWAS average was negative 0.6. Ghana registered plus 0.5%. Nigeria's GDP growth was negative 1.8%. In 2021, ECOWAS average 4.4. Ghana registered 5.4. Nigeria 0.6. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, ECOWAS 3.7. Ghana's provision is 3.6. Nigeria is 2.4. Mr. Speaker, compare your own performance with Nigeria. Over the 8 years that you were in government, there were only 3 occasions that you surpassed Nigeria. Only 3 occasions. The entire 8 years. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about economic management, you shouldn't have any mouth to even talk. Mr. Speaker, in the ECOWAS averaging annual average inflation, and we are talking about inflation, the Speaker increased to 10.2% in 2020 from 8.2% in 2019, and again 12.7% in 2021 due to increased food and fuel prices, high rate pass-through, as well as supply chain disruptions. In 2022, the average inflation of ECOWAS is estimated at 16.6%, from the projection of 9.9% at the beginning of 2022. Mr. Speaker, this reflects the supply side constraints and shortages of and other essential commodities, arising mainly from the closure of national borders and other measures imposed to contain the spread of the coronavirus through importation. Inflationary pressures persisted in the ECOWAS region in 2022, mostly due to rising commodity prices, mainly energy and fuel, with implications for transport costs, food price, exchange rate pass-through effects, as well as continuous supply chain disruptions. Mr. Speaker, indeed, of the 5 Anglo countries in the sub-region, apart from Ghana, only the Gambia's inflation rate has often been below the regional average between 2018 and 2022. For Ghana, since 2017, it is only in 2022 that average annual inflation has significantly soared over the ECOWAS average. That performance is far better than the NDC under both Mills and Mahama, where for 5 out of 8 years, Ghana's inflation was above the ECOWAS average. Your average. Mr. Speaker, so I'm saying that for now, it is only 2022 that we have overshot it. As far as you are concerned, for 5 out of 8 years, we are always above the ECOWAS average. This is the first time under Akufo-Addo that we've gone above. But that is not to say that it is justifiable. It's not to say that it's justifiable. But when you speak to facts, let the fact lead you. Mr. Speaker, so ECOWAS average, consumer price inflation, 2018, 9.3%. 2018, Ghana scored 9.8%. 2019, 8.1, Ghana scored 7.1. 2020, 10.2, 9.9. 2021, 12.7. We did 10.0. And for 2022, the Speaker, as at the end of June, it was 27.2. we are yet to do the end-on-year inflation calculation. Yes, it escalated at a point to over 50%. Certainly not the best. But when it is calculated, certainly the average is going to be somewhere in the region of 55%, which will still be above the West African average of 16.6. And that indeed we must work towards. But Mr. Speaker, Nigeria did 18.9%, Sierra Leone did 25.9%. Mr. Speaker, so Ghana is not even alone in the league. It is not to say that we must justify it. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic also undermined the progress made in previous years in the ECOWAS sub-region regarding performance under the macroeconomic criteria. Due to the impact of COVID-19 on lives and livelihoods, the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government suspended the convergence criteria for 2020 and 2021. At the end of 2020, no ECOWAS member country had met any of the 6 convergence criteria. Mr. Speaker, the convergence criteria has been reintroduced in 2020, and Ghana, as of the first half of the year 2020, had attained 3 out of 6 criteria. One must add that by the close of the year, we have slipped on 1 more of the criteria, and indeed we have attained only 2 out of the 6 criteria. Mr. Speaker, that has been the most horrible performance, that is attaining 2 out of 6 of the rationalized convergence criteria. 2 out of 6. It is the most horrible performance under Kufuor. How does it compare under the NDC? No COVID, no Russia. Mr. Speaker, when there were 10 points set criteria, your best performance was 3 out of 10. Your best performance was 3 out of the 10 convergence criteria, primary and secondary. And when we rationalized it, your best was 2 out of 6. In many instances, Mr. Speaker, you only attain 1 out of 6. And you have mouth to critique what is going on. So, for the NDC, talk is cheap. When they come to implementation, they are found terribly wanting. Mr. Speaker, that's the now situation. We have attained 2 out of 6 convergence criteria. I've said that it's not the best. Still, it's better than your performance. It's better than your performance. The Honorable Rekes was a deputy minister. The minority leader there was a deputy minister. They know I'm speaking to the truth. Shambolic performance. No COVID. No Russian-Ukraine war. Mr. Speaker, now it's important to talk to sectoral growth. The Speaker, in 2014, under the NDC, agriculture grew at 0.9%. In 2015, it registered only 2.1%. And 2016, it grew at 2.7%. In 2017, and I hope my colleague, the Honorable Eric, is listening. In 2017, agriculture grew at 6.2%. In 2018, it grew at 4.9%, and for 2019, it registered 4.7%. In 2020, agriculture grew at 7.3%. 2021, it grew at 8.4%. The Speaker, and in 2022, the projection is 4.9%. That is using the half-year indicators. Mr. Speaker, for the last 3 years of the NG, agricultural growth averaged abysmally 2%. Whereas for the MPP's tenure over the past 3 years, even shattered by COVID, agricultural growth, if we include the provisional figure of 2022 of 4.9, takes it to an average growth rate of 6.7%. Under your watch, it was 2%. So, when we're talking about the macro indicators, on what leg do you people stand? On what leg do you people stand? Mr. Speaker, that indeed is the state of the nation. The average growth for cocoa subsector, Eric, please listen. The average rate of growth for the cocoa subsector under President Mahama for the last 3 years was -3.5%. The last 3 years, average growth, cocoa subsector, negative 3.5%. Under MPP, the average growth rate for the past 3 years, even with COVID, is 4.5%, inclusive of the first year performance of 1.6, which does not include the major cocoa season, as we do know. Mr. Speaker, and I refer you to paragraph 78, table 7, page 23 of the 2023 budget. Go and look at that. You have math. You people, you have math to talk. The average growth rate in fisheries over 3 years under President Mahama was negative 3.6%. Your last 3 years. Under Akufo-Addo, over the past 3 years, the average is positive 9.7%. That rate of the nation. Mr. Speaker, under Akufo-Addo, livestock has grown averagely 5.5%. You did well in livestock your last 3 years, but it was 5.2% averagely. Akufo-Addo is doing 5.5%. And that is even what you did, evidence-based. What you brought some women here. Having given them 3 pagelets, you have no shame. Telling the nation, you grew livestock, average 5.2%, has done 5.5%. Industry, under President Mahama, industry grew at 1.1% in 2014, 2% in 2015, 4.3% in 2016. The Speaker, no COVID, no Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Speaker, under Akufo-Addo, so the average rate of growth for industry was 2.2%. Last 3 years, 2.2%. The Speaker, under Akufo-Addo in 2017, industry grew at 15.6%. 2017. And 2018, it grew at 10.5%, 2019, 6.4%. The average industrial growth for the first 3 years under Akufo-Addo was 10.8%. This compares to your 2.2% under Akufo-Addo. So, Speaker, this indeed of the nation. Everywhere in the world, industry suffered the brunt of COVID-19. Ghana was not spared. Industry crumbled in 2020 when we grew at negative 2.5%. In 2021, negative 0.8%. But industry has started rebounding in 2022 with the first half year growth in 2022 registering 1.8%. The Speaker, manufacturing is bouncing back, registering 4.8% growth in the last 3 years against Mahama's 4.3% in the last 3 years, when there was no COVID, when there was no Russian invasion. This is the state of the nation today. The Speaker, as the President stated, thanks to the One Factory program, in 4 years, 106 factories are in operation. Additional 104 factories are under construction and at various stages of completion. To rehash what the President said, and I'm quoting him, this is the largest expansion of the industrial sector since independence. Unquote. The Speaker, the President indicated that 518 million dollars of grants and loans have been provided to micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises through NBSSI, now Ghana Enterprises Agency, in which over 300,000 enterprises benefited. The Speaker, on energy, the President in his message spoke about energy sufficiency in the country when he said last year, and I'm quoting what he said last year, we have kept the lights on in spite of the worldwide upheaval in the energy sector and in spite of the huge legacy debt that we inherited, unquote. The President stressed, and again I'm quoting, the national electricity asset rate has increased from 85.17% in 2020 to 87.3% as of January 2022. By the close of December last year, access to electricity, the Speaker, is close to 88.9%. 88.9%. Mr. Speaker, we are on course to achieve universal access to electricity by the end of the President's term, as he assured. Mr. Speaker, as I said last year, I must re-emphasize that much too high a percentage of our electricity generation is dependent on fossil fuel. Mr. Speaker, the world is looking outside fossil fuels, and we must strategically align. Continuing, let me just quote what I said last year. And last year I said, Mr. Speaker, the United Arab Emirates, a major oil producer, is a major. Yet today the focus is on nuclear energy generation. And that's why on March 24, 2022, Unit 2 of the Baraka nuclear energy plant in Abu Dhabi was commissioned to commence commercial operations to add 1,400 megawatts of clean electricity to their national grid. Earlier commissioned was the Unit 1, which is producing again another 1,400 megawatts. That's why the operator, Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation, ENEC, said that the plant thus far is supplying 2,800 megawatts of electricity to their national grid. Baraka has 4 APR 1,400 megawatts units. It's intended to roll out the 3 and 4 by 2025 to generate about 85% of Abu Dhabi's clean energy and about 25% of United Arab Emirates' total electricity needs. In other words, 5,600 megawatts of nuclear energy shall be on stream in the Emirates, which uses such quantum fossil fuel and will cut over 22.5 million tons of emissions annually. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we must look at nuclear energy generation. It is clean and is close to the sustainability index. Mr. Speaker, how to deal with the roads issue that my colleague raised. The President insisted that monies that had been contracted had not been recklessly spent and was emphatic that he had taken loans to develop the country and the living conditions of the citizens. He said that he has built roads and bridges and constructed schools to develop human capital. On roads, the President insisted, and I'm quoting him, that this government has built more roads than any government of the Fourth Republic. Last year, the President made a similar claim, and some people expressed strong disagreement. Unfortunately, not from any informed perspective. To put the matter to bed, the President submitted an annex to a delivery statement which captured the numbers, the descriptions, the locations, lengths, and quality of roads and bridges that have been done. The truth of the matter is that President Kufuor met a total national road network of 39,000 kilometers. That was from independence up to President Kufuor's time. At the time of President Kufuor's exit, the road network had increased from 39,000 to 69,000 kilometers. Most of the additional 30,000 kilometers, though, comprised roads. Enter President Milton Mahama. At the time, the road network was assumed to have increased to 73,000, an addition of 4,000 kilometers. Mr. Speaker, I have quoted these figures, which were given to this House by the then Minister for Roads and Highways, my friend and colleague, Honorable Husseini Inusa. This figure on many platforms. However, after verification in 2018, it found that the figure quoted in 2016 by the Minister, that Mr. Husseini, slowly, and thanks to election year endeavors and the completion of other uncompleted projects, the total kilometers of roads under President Mahama and Mills was rather up to 78,000 kilometers, which meant that the two administrations had expanded the road network by 9,000 kilometers. From 78,000, the Kufuor administration has massively expanded the frontiers of road construction and taken it to 103,000 kilometers today. 25,000 kilometers of roads added. And these are in the form of highways, urban roads, feeder roads, and even town roads. Mr. Speaker, these have been added, and it's only half into the second chapter of Akufo-Addo's government. That, indeed, is the state of the nation today. Mr. Speaker, the people of Swabi, Lenshia, Tafo, Bantama, and indeed the Masisi metropolitan area, as well as the middle and northern sectors of the country, were elated when the President heard the President relate to a $750 million Afri Exim Bank facility which has been secured and to make it possible to construct additional roads and interchanges, including the long-awaited interchange, Port Swami interchange. We can only hold our breath for the much delayed actual construction of the $47 million ancillary roads to engender the commencement of the interchange. The Speaker, yesterday, I entered the chamber in the course of the debate. I had my colleague, the Honorable Governors Kwame Abuja, the Minority Chief Whip, and the Ranking Member on Roads and Transport, speak to the need to maintain our roads. I cannot agree more with him. There's a lot to be desired about keeping roads that are constructed in good shape. The Speaker, however, every one of us, all of us in this House, MPs, we need to be constructed. Not least because it will improve the quality of lives in our constituencies, but as well adds a fillip to our chances of being retained by our constituents. The Speaker, the ranking member mounted a spirited rejection of the claim by the President with respect to road construction. This time around, he has had a road to Damascus experience. The Speaker is not casting doubts on the claim, but we need to maintain what works that have been done. And as I said, I agree entirely with the Minority Chief Whip. The Speaker, last year, the President, whilst conceding that the nation was going through some difficult times, asserted, and I'm quoting him, that government intends to continue and grow the economy to bring prosperity. Happen if we continue to invest in the future, he added. The Speaker, in this year's message, the President stated candidly that the free senior high school and free TVET are the best vehicles we have devised to take us to the realization of our goal of an educated and skilled force. Unquote. Continuing, the President said, and I'm quoting once again, the TVET institutions are being equipped to enable them to train increased numbers of children that we want to be attracted to the sector to meet modern needs of our economy. Unquote. Accordingly, Speaker, the President said he was going to commission 34 refurbished NVTIs and some other technical colleges that were going to be constructed in the 5 new regions, including Western North, Savannah, Northeast, Ahafo, and Oti regions. These bold declarations were made, the Speaker, they were very congruent with the imperatives of Article 36(2)(d) of the Constitution of our Republic. In this regard, it was good to hear the President reveal this time around, and I'm quoting him again, since the realignment and action of free TVET, enrollment in TVET schools has increased from 13,000 in the year 2021 to 47,000 in the year 2022. The Speaker, also staggering statistics as of this year, nearly 2 million young people have benefited from the free SHS policy. And when the doomsday prophets and prophetesses were proclaiming that the free senior high school was going to lead to a lowering of standards, the result being churned out by the senior high school students strongly suggests that the students are doing much, much better than the students under the Old Testament. We are indeed enhancing the quality of human capital. The Speaker, that again is the state of our nation. Mr. Speaker, on the country's engagement with the IMF, the President, apart from what briefing the Finance Minister had earlier come to deliver to this House, related to the status of the negotiations and what conclusions would offer the country, that is, the restoration of macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability whilst protecting the vulnerable in the Ghanaian society. The Speaker, much hot air has been generated as to how we got here as a country. The government's critics have insisted that the circumstance of the country is attributable to reckless and profligate expenditure. It has been a place to explain that it has borrowed to provide the necessary infrastructure, including roads, not only roads, but including roads, health facilities, potable water, electricity, educational facilities, drains, cleaning up the banking sector, resourcing the various government, including parliament and the judiciary, as well as other constitutional creatures to uphold and protect democratic governance. Mr. Speaker, in the same manner, government is maintaining the unity and stability of our dear nation by making relevant allocations to the armed forces, the police service in particular, to preserve the internal security and protect the territorial integrity of the Republic. All these were coalescing seamlessly and harmoniously to guide us to achieve a per capita income of $4,500 by 2030, current level of $2,500. Mr. Speaker, when we inherited under the NDC, what was it? It was less than 2,000. What we had, the per capita index of this country when we inherited was around $1,650. Today, under Akufo-Addo, is $2,500. And you have the boldness to say that this really is bad governance. Mr. Speaker, may God forgive the trespasses. Mr. Speaker, we may spend hours, days, weeks, and months each engaged in self-righteous and self-serving finger-pointing. The truth shall stand. And the truth is that all of us have been negligent oversight responsibilities. Every government will strive to leave an indelible mark as far as development is concerned. Thus, that is what the electorate shall remember the government for. However, we should equally be concerned about the means to that end. Every government has been borrowing to add to the stock of debt. Parliament should be the body to ensure that we spend within our means. Parliament does not have a committee on the economy to do this analysis for us. The NDPC, which exists to create a long-term development plan, is not properly situated. Until we put the proper mechanisms in place, what is happening today may repeat itself. Mr. Speaker, we need fiscal discipline. The otherwise central role of the NDPC, which remains unfulfilled, is one of the many are calling for a holistic review of the Constitution. The debt stock of the NDC, calculated year on year in dollar terms, was about $47 billion. Year on year, what the MPP has added is in the region of $32 billion. And I was really concerned about the voodoo financials that the minority leader was engaged in. Mr. Speaker, in city terms, the debt stock appears insurmountable, but we must work our way out together. And that's why we have to go back to the IMF. Parliament is required to partner government to hasten the negotiations with IMF after achieving the staff level agreement in December 2022 by passing the remaining financial bills of Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Duty Amendment Bill, Excise Stamp Amendment Bill, and the Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill. Mr. Speaker, the passage of bills would sanctify the country before the IMF and at the same time rev up our domestic revenue mobilization efforts. As for the domestic debt exchange program, Mr. Speaker, much discourse has been generated already, and I will not overflow the issue, except to reiterate the fact that it is a call to help to all patriots. Let us hold together to rescue the nation. It's a clarion call on patriots to voluntarily assist in the revitalization of the economy. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, let me say that no country engages the IMF if the country is not afflicted by economic challenges. Have we been reckless in borrowing and expenditure? The records do not lead to that conclusion. Could we have done better? Upon hindsight, it may be that we over-exaggerated our strength in a few areas. Notwithstanding, there is empirical evidence to show that it has not underperformed. In sharp contrast with its immediate predecessor administration, the government has done enormously well, notwithstanding the current hiccups. It is important to state the following facts. Mr. Speaker, the rate of economic growth has more than doubled from the 2.8 6% growth that President Muhammad bequeathed to his successor administration. Mr. Speaker, in spite of the COVID-19 and Russia-Ukraine conflict, the country remains self-sufficient in staples of cassava and plantain. We no longer import them from Cote d'Ivoire. We have not imported maize for human consumption over the past 3 years. The Speaker, rather, neighboring countries have been buying these items, especially maize, yam, and rice, from Ghana. We have cleaned up the banking sector and saved depositors from the misuse of some deposit-taking houses, which really should not have been given license to operate in the first place. NAPCO gave employment to over 100,000 graduates who otherwise would not have had any employment at all. Over 1.5 million people have been offered employment, most of them in the informal sector. Over 350,000 people were employed to offer services in the public space. 7. Teacher training allowances have been restored. 8. Nurses training allowances restored. 9. Free senior high school has been introduced and is still working. 307 fit-for-purpose ambulances have been procured and distributed to all constituencies nationwide. The realignment and introduction of TVET has resulted in the increase of enrollment in TVET schools from 13,000 in 2021 to 47,000 in 2022. 6 new regions and additional districts have been created to ensure even and balanced development in every part of Ghana and to redress any imbalance between the rural and urban areas as provided under Article 62D. Drones have been introduced to enhance the delivery of healthcare. About 340 out of the 564 dams have either been completed or are very near completion. 3 development authorities have been established to provide additional fillip to government's development agenda in the various districts. The construction of 10 fish landing sites at the coast in such towns as Keta, Tashi, Winneba, Mumford, Azim are at the of completion. The construction of the Tamale Airport Phase 2 is progressing steadily. Mr. Speaker, the Tamale interchange, the first of its kind in the northern part of Ghana, has been completed. The Pokwasi interchange has been completed. The Obe interchange is nearing completion. Works on the main Swami interchange would soon. Phase 1 of the interchange of the Tema end of the motorway has been completed and Phase 2 has commenced in earnest. Mr. Speaker, the Integrated Iron and Steel Development Authority has come to upscale the country's industrialization efforts. The integrated bauxite and aluminum industry would soon witness a quantum leap. The Pwalugu Dam and irrigation system will soon translate onto the plains of Talensi and the adjoining districts to give life to lives. The assembly plants of 2 automobile companies, Volkswagen and Toyota, are on stream. 2 others, Renault and Sinotruk, are soon to be operationalized. The security forces are being provided with the necessary equipment, including patrol vehicles, armored vehicles, helicopters, night vision equipment, logistics, accommodation, to provide motivation to ensure internal security, dealing with crime, and defend the country and her citizens if and when the need arises. Mr. Speaker, this is the state of the nation today. Mr. Speaker, Parliament, our Parliament, has had most resources allocated to it by this government than any other government since this Fourth Republic. That is the state of the nation. That is the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, the government has implemented successfully a new identification system. This government has implemented the Zongo Development Fund to respond to the needs of Zongo and inner city communities. The Speaker, government has increased the number of public libraries by about 90% over the past 6 years. The Speaker, Kufuor's government has increased the population with access to toilet facilities from the 33% to 59%, almost 60%. That's close to a doubling of what we met. We have increased access to electricity to close to 90%. Mr. Speaker, government has constructed more kilometrage of railway lines than any other government since independence. Any other government since independence. Kilometrage of rail lines since independence. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, all that we inherited from the colonial administration. That's why I said since independence. If you listen to me carefully, you are now nodding your head. Mr. Speaker, the current NPP government has successfully introduced and implemented the digital address system. We are innovatively implementing a paperless system in the clearing of goods and purpose, thereby enhancing revenue collection at the entry points. Mr. Speaker, this indeed is the state of our nation. These very few examples out of thousands of programs and projects bear eloquent testimony about the accomplishment of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration. The nation on the face of these would not be deceived by fancy talkers. The nation on the face of these would not be deceived by fancy talkers. Honor to the fact, however, that there is some darkness now, but there is light at the end of the tunnel if we hold together and not become unnecessarily partisan. The people are watching, and we come together when the need requires of us to come together to build this country out together. There are one people in one country with a common destiny. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for your indulgence.
Honorable members, I think you've had a very good debate. This year's debate, members were not interjected. We had free debate, and I think I've enjoyed. So the rules that were set up by the leaders, I think has worked. So at the conclusion of the debate, the question is as many
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, at the end of the debate, what we do is, on behalf of the House, congratulate the President for delivering the message on the state of the nation. This is not one issues where a question is put. Respectfully.
Yeah, Leader, I think appropriately we will convey a letter of gratitude to the President, His Excellency the President. But this well, honourable members, we've brought the debate to a closure. The House will convey a message to His Excellency the President at the hands of the Right Honourable Speaker. So, honorable members, leaders, any indication?
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, if you permit me to present the papers listed on the order paper. And then there is also an addendum, just presentation of the paper, and then we'll then take an agenda. I recognize that my colleagues may have to travel to their constituencies to do the needful. So, Mr. Speaker, if we go to the original order paper, page 5, if I may start with page 5.
Yes, honorable members. Honorable members, let me respectfully invite you to page 5, item listed 8, presentation of papers by the majority leader.
Budget performance report in respect of the Electoral Commission of Ghana for the period to December 2022. Proposed formula for distributing the District Assembly's Common Fund for the year 2023. Proposed formula for distribution of the Ghana Education Trust Fund for the 2023. Proposed formula for the disbursement of the National Health Insurance Fund for the year 2023.
Honorable members, the first paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the Budget Committee for consideration and report. The second paper was duly presented. It is referred to the Committee of the Whole for consideration and report. Very well, honorable members, the other three, all of them are duly presented. They are referred to the Committee of the Whole for consideration and report. Yes, leadership.
Speaker, so we look at the addendum order paper. Page 2 of the addendum order paper. And that's item 2.
Well, let me invite you to the addendum paper, page 2, item listed 2, presentation of papers. Yes, by the finance.
Mr. Speaker, subject to your indulgence and that of my colleagues, I want to do the presentation on behalf of the Finance Minister.
Leader, leave granted.
Modification to use the proceeds for 2 selected roads projects under the loan facility agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance, African Export-Import Bank, for an amount of 750 million United States to finance capital and growth-related expenditures in the 2022 budget. That is 75 million allocated for the of the Ejisu-Konogo Road project to be reallocated for the construction of the Swami Interchange change, and 98 million for the construction of the Enchikrom Adosu Road project to be reallocated for the construction of the bypasses Accra Kumasi Road N6.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, if you may add the leadership of the Roads and Transport Committee.
Very well.
Yes.
So, honourable members, the leadership of Roads.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to differ because, Mr. Speaker, this is a loan agreement that has already been by the House. The loan agreement came with an indicative use of proceeds. It is not the financing, the works agreement that we are going to vary. A loan agreement itself, in the document, there's an indicative use of proceeds, and they are varying the indicative use of proceeds to protect the project. I do not believe that we would need the road committee to be part of it. I think it's more of finance committee matter. Finance committee, they're only modifying the use of proceeds, not even the terms of the loan. It's a modification. But if you insist, Mr. Speaker, I'm of the view that finance committee can do this job appropriately.
Yes, leader.
Mr. Speaker, as the minority leader has stated, really, in the aphorism, we gave ourselves some broad indications as to the application. And so, referring this to the committee, they will then advise. In fact, this is for the avoidance of doubt situation. So they will just come and advise the House that this can be done and so on. And also to protect Parliament, not to protect me, to protect Parliament. That, so Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, somebody said that we should add the Energy Committee. Mr. Speaker, everywhere in the world, when you do roads and maybe you have to provide illumination, it is considered as part of the road infrastructure. Speak to the mic. Speak to the mic. So that is what it is. So the referral to the Finance Committee, and just to cover our backs, just the leadership of the Roads and Transport Committee. I thank you.
Very well. So the report, as I said, has already been presented. It is referred to the Finance Committee, and we are asking that the leadership of the Rules Committee joins them to consider the report.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry. I should have done something else on page 6 of the original paper. I think because it was on the other side of the paper, of the leaflet, I forgot. Page 6, on behalf of the Finance Minister, to present those listed, those papers listed. B, Roman number 1, Roman number 2, and Roman number 3. And then you do the referral to the Finance Committee.
Very well.
Request for waiver of customs duties, import VAT, import NHRL, Get Fund levy, EXIM levy, special import levy, and domestic VAT amounting to cedi equivalent of 4,954,587 United States dollars, 88 cents, made up of 624,731 United States dollars on imports and 329,856 United States dollars, 88 cents on local purchases on materials, goods, and equipment required to be procured for the construction of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Office Annex Building project. Request for waiver of import duty, import NHIL, import Get Fund levy, import VAT, AU levy, ECOWAS levy, and inspection fees amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 99,207,119 euros, 45 cents, made up of 64,655,350 euros 52 cents for Global Fund and Gavi Alliance, and 34,551,708 euros 93 cents for other development partners to the Ministry of Health for medical supplies, including vaccines, medicines, equipment, and vehicles to support the health sector for the period 2021 to 2023. Request for waiver for import duties, import NHIL, import get fund levy, import VAT, EXIM levy, special import levy, import COVID-19 levy, domestic VAT, domestic NHIL, domestic get fund levy, and domestic COVID-19 levy amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 4,904,000 and United States dollars 75 cents, made up of 4,454,892 United States dollars and imports and 449,116 United States dollars 75 cents on local purchases on equipment, materials, goods and services to be procured for the improvement of Tema Motorway Roundabout Phase 2 project.
Honourable members, the reports I have been duly presented. They are referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report. Honourable members, let's turn to item 7. Item 7 in today's order paper statements. I have admitted one statement, which is a tribute in memory of the late former member of this House, Mr. Nyamadonko, by Honourable Member for New Jabe North. Honourable, the floor is yours. You may read your tribute now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to pay tribute in memory of the late Honourable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko, former Member of Parliament who represented the people of the New Jabe North constituency in the first Parliament of the Republic from 7th January 1993 to 6th January 1997 on the ticket of the National Convention Party. He had a distinguished long public service in Ghana beyond representing the New Jabe North constituency in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, he was appointed Deputy Minister in the first NDC administration in 1996 and later became a substantive Minister of Health in 1998. In 1999, he was appointed Regional Minister for Ashanti, position he held until January 2001 when the National Democratic Congress handed over government to the New Patriotic Party. In March 2014, he was appointed the Managing Director of the Intercity State Transport Company Limited, position he held from 2014 to 2017. Prior to the advent of constitutional rule in this country, between 1982 and 1992, served as Deputy Regional Coordinator for People's Defense Committees and Workers' Defense Committees in the Eastern region. As a Member of Parliament, he was a Deputy Minority Leader and was very active in committee work. He served as the Chairman of the Select Committee on Food, Agriculture and Cocoa Affairs. He was also a member of the following committees: Trade, Industry and Tourism, Roads and Highways, Environment, Science and Technology, Local and Rural Development, and then Public Accounts. He was passionate when matters relating to agriculture came to be discussed in Parliament, always looking for ways to improve upon productivity in the sector. Supporting a motion on 14th March 1995, he stated, and with your permission, Mr. Speaker, I quote, "Mr. Speaker, I should like to support of the motion and would also like to take advantage of the presence of the Minister to drive home. Agriculture, no doubt, is the mainstay of our economy, and therefore the role of agriculture in the socio-economic development of the country cannot be overemphasized. Some honorable members have talked about it to ensure that agricultural extension officers are taken care of to guarantee success in the sector. However, I would like to state here that there must be a medium through which the work of the extension officers will be assessed, because the extension officers have a duty of assisting our farmers in terms of technical knowledge with a view to increase production in the area of subsistence farming. If we do not have means of assessing the performance of these officers, no matter the inputs that we give them, we will not be able to make the necessary impacts on their performance, unquote. Mr. Speaker, this statement I submit is still relevant today if extension services can make the right impact on productivity in the sector. As a member of Parliament for the New North constituency, he had dedicated himself to the development aspirations of the people, particularly in the health, education, and agriculture sectors. The health facility at Asokori stands today to his eternal credit. He supported a good number of young men and women to pursue further education, both home and abroad, many of whom are now gainfully employed and contributing to the economic development of the country. Late Honorable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko had a knack for resolving problems. He was intelligent and witty, and these are traits he had inherited from his late father, the Jaswohine of Asokori in the New Japan traditional area. These traits of his were recognized, resulting in him being appointed in 1999 to serve as the regional minister for Ashanti region. With his diverse socio-cultural and political dynamic, he excelled in this position to the admiration of all of their political persuasions. Again, as the managing director in the Intercity State Transport Company Limited, his sterling leadership resulted in the transformation of TC into a service-oriented and customer-friendly enterprise, rebranded to play a critical role in the transportation sector of the economy. No wonder the present administration of STC had cause to honor him after he had left the organization. One remarkable thing one can say about the late Honorable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko was his humility in public life and in all his endeavors. Mr. Speaker, we can all learn from him. As we pay tribute in memory of our former member, minister, colleague, compatriot, brother, and friend, we extend our deepest condolences to the bereaved family, the wife and children, and good people of the New Japan North constituency. May the soul of the late Honorable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko rest in perfect peace. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Very well. So, Honorable Dr. Nyamadonko, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to utilize this cadre, journalist, patriot, minister, man. Mr. The late Nyamadonko was a deputy regional coordinator of People's Defense Committees and Workers' Defense Committees of the Eastern Region. Mr. Speaker, he was also the municipal chief executive for New Durban. He also rose to become deputy regional minister. Through that route, he also became the regional minister for Ashanti, became a cabinet minister, minister for health. And indeed, if you talk professionals of the Ministry of Health, they will mention him, they will mention the late Major, they will mention the late Major Kweshiga as some of the best ministers of health. Ahmadu Nko was also a cultural icon. Indeed, anytime we were in his prime minister in Ashanti, anytime we went to a park, he will start his delivery with a proverb. He was so good, and he brought our tradition into life through the use of proverbs. Apparently lived within a palace. So well versed with the Akan culture and Akan society. Honorable Ahmadu Nko's one of his attributes is his humility. Honorable Ahmadu Nko will talk to the Kayaye on the streets of Kumasi with such respect, and he will extend the same respect to the Asantehene. He was somebody who believed that irrespective of your status in life, you were worth respecting. The late Ahmadu Nko, who most people thought was my brother, could build bridges between almost all the divides we had in our society. He was one person who was extremely popular in Kumasi Zongo, within the Zongo communities, and yet was seen as an Ashanti royal again in Ashanti. Between the ND and MPP in Ashanti, he moved seamlessly between the two political divides, especially when it came to problem solving. Even though he was originally from the eastern region, but as a result of the divide between Eastern and Ashanti, he was accepted as a royal in both regions. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Ahmadu Nko, as Minister of Health, would take a bottle of whiskey in the evening, go to the dean of the medical school, go to a professor of Kolebu, go and sit down and have a chat in order to hear the other side of policy, health policy from practitioners. He had that character. For young politicians coming up, Honorable Ahmadu Nko is one person I'll recommend to young politicians to study his background, his approach to politics, his lifestyle, and emulate. We have lost a patriot, we have lost a nationalist, we have lost a unifier, a bridge builder. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Let him come to Honorable First Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are not many days that I speak about people in this, because indeed, Honorable Ahmadu Nko left this parliament before I joined parliament. And Mr. Speaker, I've known him in my young days when I started law practice in Koforidua. At that time, Honorable Ahmadu Nko was a PDC or CDR coordinator operating on a motorbike. We used to meet at the Fijuase. We became friends by accident because somebody had run into his motorbike and the person had engaged me as a lawyer, Abraham Co. Gofrodia. In the course of discussion, we generally clicked because of what I observed about him. Down to earth by nature, very humble in character, very accommodating. Of course, at that time, very active pro-NPP, even though we had not started, or should I say, very avid anti-PNDC, engaging with a CDR person. It was supposed to be confrontational, but we each accommodated each other so well, and from that time we became friends. I recall most of the times in 1992, when the campaigns were going on, we would meet, and I was then driving my small VW Jet, stop by the roadside, and we argue and argue and argue, but in the end we would leave smiling at each other. In fact, I would say that from the conversations I had after he left the Ministry of Health, it was very clear that what made him stand out and what made the doctors and others remember him most was his humility and the level of official. Nurses and doctors across the board would always cite that as an example of a person who they could readily work with. When he became Ashanti Regional Minister, something happened which I still remember. At that time, Kumasi Tafo, was part of the Majority Leaders Constituency. As the Ashanti Regional Minister, he observed that one of the most best planned communities in Kumasi is Tafo. All the houses were built in row, but the lanes that are reserved for vehicle movement have been covered in kiosks. He successfully engaged the landlords and the house owners to remove their kiosks, explaining to them the danger of reaching their house, not being able to reach their houses in fire and emergencies by emergency agencies like the fire service, by National Ambulance, and so on. And indeed, that was very successfully executed by the landlords themselves when he personally engaged them and explained to them why it is necessary to keep the lanes. Now, in my view, since Kumasi, he's been operating, I met him while he was still MD of STC, but not much about him. He continued to be the honorable and accommodating gentleman I knew him to be. May the soul of our friend, Honorable Nyamadonko, rest in perfect peace. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Kofi, I'm taking for the last person that I come to leadership. Yes, Honorable Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to say some few words about Samuel Nyama Donko, someone I could describe as a brother, because we work so closely with our late former president, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings. But even before, Mr. Speaker, I get to the days of our working with former presidents in these last few days before his passing. As a member of parliament during that time, because of the members of the minority, they were so few that many of them would have to pick a lot of responsibilities. And he was one such person who was very available to play a number of roles. As deputy minority leader, at a point, he became even the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. It was his period as the Minister for Health, before then deputy. We saw the eradication of guinea worm from our country. And that was one disease that was devastating a lot of the rural communities. He, together with his boss and the then President, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, saw to it that guinea worm was completely eradicated. Mr. Speaker, when he was promoted to the position of the full health minister, a number of strikes were happening because our health professionals were complaining of being overworked. He met with them and introduced the additional hour allowances that helped in one way or the other to solve this striking situation that the health institutions were confronted with. Mr. Speaker, he didn't end there. We all know that Ashanti region was more of a stronghold of the main opposition as it was then. When Nyama Donko became the minister for Ashanti region, he managed to quell a lot of situations that other persons maybe would have supervised and turned it into something else. It was because of his calm nature, his style, his approach, that you hardly will get offended with Nyama Donko standing before you. The way he will approach you, the way he will handle the situation, no matter who you are and how angry you are, you will surely will come under and listen to him. Mr. Speaker, STC, an institution that was faced with a lot of challenges, having been appointed as DG, he sought to improve STC. Today, if we celebrate STC, if we think that STC has come back to life and it has some roots, it was Nyama Donko. He did so much to end with internal resources. He managed to secure a number of buses. Most of those buses are still on the road today, generating income for the STC. Mr. Speaker, a lot of friends of Jerry Rawlings at a point had difficulty dealing with him and being around at the same time being in government. But Nyama Donko was not to be one of such persons. He found time to associate with Jerry Rawlings any time his services were needed. All our activities, you'll find Nyama Donko there. And it wasn't that when he passed, the most common pictures you find of him with any senior officer on our side was President Rawlings, even as a former president. So, Speaker, I'm happy to be here today, at least to be able to add my voice to eulogize this man of ours, this great colleague of ours, and this great brother that I'll call of mine. I can only say that soul should rest in perfect peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Very well. Yes. Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the maker of the statement for a very, for a good tribute to our late Samuel Nwama Donko. Mr. Speaker, who had a very long public service. In all the areas that he served, he excelled. Mr. Speaker, whether he was a member of parliament, has been stated, his dedication and the focus in areas of health, agriculture, and others to transform his community as a Minister of Health. His record at the ministry is really clear on the things he focused on. Ministry of Ashanti Regional Minister, a lot of the good things we've heard. I personally met him as a minister, and he gave me very good advice on few occasions. A very kind man. Mr. Speaker, his record at the STC has been attested to, and clearly, when he went to STC, his focus was to make sure that the institution would stand the test of time. And he left a legacy that everybody spoke about. I think as we pay tribute Yeah, Honorable Nyoma Donko, I think the question that we all have to ask is that when we die, what will be said about us? The good things you do, as you said, good things that men do live after them. And I think today, the good things that the Honorable Nyoma Donko did is really the things that we are all remembering. And we really, on this day, thank him for his dedicated public service to Ghana. We mourn with the family and we pray that God will give him a good rest. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, let me come to leader.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the statement which has been made to eulogize the Honorable Samuel Nyoma Donko. Speaker, I associate myself with the very words that have been used by all and sundry to describe the Honorable Nyoma Donko. A man who was humble to the core. Speaker, in government, he was from one place to the other. First starting as a chief whip for the minority, becoming minority leader, and then being assigned a role as a deputy minister, then substantive minister for health, and then going to the Ashanti region as a minister of state, indeed regional minister for Ashanti region, which was supposed to be a hotbed for the NDC. That indeed was a man who possessed considerable versatility. Speaker, the Honorable Nyoma Donko, as has been said, was a more down-to-earth personality who associated with all and sundry. Speaker, one could decipher he was sent to Kumasi from the Ministry of Health on purpose, and the purpose was to still the rampaging war in Kumasi. Here we had some group of persons managing the affairs of the NDC at the time who believed in strong arm tactics, and all the language that they used, all they understood was to use force on people who they thought disagreed with them. Don't forget, a very honorable member of this House, the Honorable Unfreda Nane, had gone to KMA just to request his own common funds, the use of his common funds. And attacks were unleashed on the member of parliament within the presence of KMA. He was assaulted and stamped on profusely right at KMA. All because the people at the helm of affairs at the time, at the regional level and at the metropolitan level, believed in the use of brute force. I think recognizing what was happening, Nyoma Donko then was posted to Ashanti region. And lo and behold, his own attitude, his demeanor, and the fact that he was always engaging to find common ground was what indeed yielded some dividends for the NDC. My own constituency, Swami, was the epicenter of machoism. And here we had a group of macho gang who could be unleashed on police stations and assault policemen. And the police were afraid of them. On one occasion, when people were attending the of MPP, barriers have been erected at Swami. And people who were pulling out or who were wearing MPP t-shirts. The Swami police went to intervene. In the process, one of the guys ran to the Swami police station. They went to the police station and vandalized the police station. And Kumasi police could not arrest them. They were using a Nissan pickup, which had been procured from Ghana Water Company at the time, and a Hyundai bus. And in those vehicles, openly wielded AK-47s, given to them by the powers that were at the time. And they will park in front of the residence of the chief imam of Swami, who now has become the Ashanti Regional Chief Imam. And the ammunition were in the vehicle for all who cared to know and see. Nyoma Donko came and changed the contours of political administration in Ashanti. The Speaker, the Honorable First Deputy Speaker has related to what he did at Tafo when he engaged the chief and the landlords and the Zongo chief, and all of them came to the determination that Tafo should go back to the strict grid system that had to construct Tafo Township. So all attachment constructions and kiosks that have been put to obstruct and indeed impede the movement of pedestrians and vehicles were removed and demolished. That paved the way for Tafo then to regenerate itself. Mr. Speaker, from Tafo, the next port of call was going to be Bremai. After the elections, when the NDC lost, that was the end. And Bremai has become worse off. Today, you can't move from one end to the other. And Nyoma Donko has made thoroughfares at Tafo. That is his legacy. Speaker, I believe if he had lived on longer to have been in charge of the region, things would have changed for the better. Now, Ashanti, the regional ministers, including regional secretaries, PNDC, NDC, who were posted there since 1982, the two people who stand out are Nyoma Donko and Kojo Yanga. There are two people who relate to people, who didn't believe in the use of brute force. They believe in brain power. Let's sit down and talk. Mr. Speaker, I had a very close encounter with him in the conduct of presidential and general elections in December 2020, when there was an allegation that somebody had thumb-printed some ballots and smuggling them. We had all gone there, and a lady photojournalist was snapping pictures, and she was descended on by some army officers. And the lady was assaulted. I had gone to plead with the soldiers to leave the lady alone. And the lead person descended on me and hit me on the head several times with the butt of his gun. That man happened to be one Sergeant Alasan, who was the driver of then General Njido. Nyoma Donko apparently heard when I was bleeding profusely at Tafo police station to lodge a complaint. They have given me, after I have written my statement, just about to move from there to Konfanochi. She came to the police station, saw me, and more or less lifted me, put me in his vehicle, and that's one of them to drive me. I come in the company of General Anyeho himself and another person. But General Anyeho didn't utter one word. Nyoma Donko was who pleaded with me. Took me to the emergency center of Konfanochi and had stitches administered on my head. Thereafter, he drove me to and asked me to rest from a rather traumatizing experience. At exactly 5 o'clock, he came back. He said, no, you're a politician. You're contesting. You want to observe the collation of the results. So he drove me to Wesley College. I had a police station there. Took me to some 2 other police stations to monitor, seeing my condition. After those events, and after the event, he got to purchase for that young lady another camera. That was a man. That was the kind of person Ghana needs in governance. People who believe in brute force. Mr. Speaker, he invited me on a couple of occasions to his house. Unfortunately, I could not avail time to be with him. It was the reason why when I learned of his transition, I was shell-shocked and so traumatized. And I went to the president to inform him. The president himself was and said, no, this is a man that I can say was indeed a good man. So the state will do to assist the funeral, the family, give him a befitting burial. Speaker, and the president himself has been very much involved in the organization of the funeral. Unfortunately, there were some difficulties among his family members. But I got myself, they invited me, and I had to send my dispatch rider to Koforidua to deliver a letter to them. It was pointless fighting after the man had died. Eventually, we were able to get them together. And that is what is paving the way for the organization of the funeral tomorrow. Speaker, Shakespeare, it was who said, who wrote that is oft interred in the bones. Today, the converse is what we are hearing. The good of Sinoma Donko would not be interred with his bones. And they will speak for him as they are speaking for him in this house. On this occasion, Speaker, we pray to God that he gives him eternal rest and that the departure of the Honorable Sinoma Donko, a peacemaker, will bring peace in his family. May his soul rest in peace. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, shall we rise and give him 1 minute of silence? May the soul of Honorable Samuel Nyamba Donko and all the faithful rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader Lenin.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we must adjourn. The Attorney General is here to respond to questions that have been filed. But I've indicated to him that how far we travel, we have to adjourn. And then maybe program for next week. Mr. Speaker, but he indicates to me that he's also traveling out next week. So perhaps we may have to take it into the following week for him to come and respond to those questions.
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we have to adjourn on the 31st. That is the program to adjourn. So it will mean that it will be after the next succeeding week that we may have to program him to court.
Anyway, incidentally, all the owners of this, apart from Dr. Kwabra Donko, all of them are not even here.
Mr. Speaker, all of them delegated me to ask their question.
You don't have the attorney of anybody. So, honorable members, we will accordingly adjourn the House to Tuesday, the 21st of March 2023. Tuesday, the 21st of March 2023 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Before I adjourn, let me use this opportunity to thank all of you, especially the leadership, for your cooperation. For the entire week, even before the week done, from last Thursday when my bosses left me alone. You've cooperated with me, and I believe you've had one of the best debates. So I'm so grateful and I'm very appreciative. On that note, the House stands adjourned to Tuesday, the 21st of March 2023 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. The House stands adjourned.